um, but it is a little tricky, and I can't understand why it's tricky, because sometimes when I open it up, I'm able to send it to a printer, and sometimes I'm not. But if I save it to a jump drive, take it to another computer, then I know I can send it to a printer. So, and that step actually gives me a better chance at editing it too. So it's not a bad thing that you can't, sometimes can't print directly.
Okay.
So when we're in school on Tuesday together, I can show you it and kind of see how it's working these days. So we'll do it then.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
I used my external hard drive and I had a folder on it just called scans. So like all 4 years, I just compiled all my scans into it so I could go back to them later. And then I would just jump on another computer, edit it, and move it into whatever, project folder. But that way I had the archive if I ever needed it.
Yeah, I think the benefit of the format that we're in now is that archiving work is something that is a must now, instead of something you do at the end of the semester quickly. It's good to do that as the semester goes, project to project. All right.
The other thing that that you might want to keep in mind and maybe elaborate on, I don't know if it's too soon or it's never too soon, but when you save work on a computer or save it anywhere in your places, especially because you usually improve the work or you edit the work or you do something, you change it somehow or another, it's nice to keep a running date of what you did, so you can always go back to a previous version if need be. And I know that seems cumbersome, but it might save you in the long run, because you may have edited something and it didn't look so good, and now you can't go back to what it originally was. But if you save it with a new number or a new date or some method, I feel like there should really be a course called file naming, and that if that were taught in the freshman year, that if you had a consistent way that you developed to name your files, it'll save you immensely over the long haul. So just might be something that we can have a discussion about at some appropriate time, either this semester or next semester. But yeah, and Dustin probably would also kind of fit in with that, with graphic representation and a lot of digital work that you gotta keep track of it somehow, that you can get back to it. So no time like the present.
A lot of times your SketchUp files will just get corrupt. Dustin can probably talk about why or how or whatever, but magically you open your file and it's broken. So if you actually every day at the end of the day you save like that day's work, then you can just go back 2 days ago and you have to redo a day of work, but it's better than redoing all of the work. Been there.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're trying to get people good about saving things to a cloud, whether it's Dropbox or Box or Google Drive or OneDrive. There's so many free resources available. It's not like when I was in school where you just had to buy a really expensive external hard drive. I mean, it's very free to do that now. And
I still use an external hard drive, just so you know.
That's totally fine. I'm just saying that there's no excuse for not backing up files, let alone backing up files multiple times. But yeah, when it comes to the file organization, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but definitely some students I have right now in Design Communication 5 are suffering because they're not disciplined about how you're keeping your files organized. And it's super important, so we spend most of our time these days working in digital environments, like majority, that's how like 70% of the design work happens, right? So if that's where you're putting most of your effort, why wouldn't you take safeguards to protect where you're investing most of your effort? You know what I mean? Because if it gets lost, it's like there's a lot of time. And let me say from experience, it happens, but it sucks professionally. So get good about these habits while you're in school, and then when you enter, a professional firm, you're like, I already have these good habits I'm entering, coming in with. So
that would be a really good IDSO meeting topic.
Yeah. I mean, it's for sure. I mean, I guess I'm just thinking, what's that?
Can't get rid of me. Sorry, I'm still throwing out ideas for IDSO.
Okay, okay. Yeah, no, I don't think anyone's trying to get rid of you, but let's be clear. You made a decision to move to another state, pretty much distance yourself as much as physically
Here,
possible from
I'm still
Michigan,
here.
Western Michigan University. No, it's okay. Contribute to our community at your convenience, Brooke. Yeah, no, but my final comment on this like kind of like file organization thing, because it is like super important, especially as we talk about what's called building information modeling, and you're actually pulling in file formats, whether it's AutoCAD or Revit or SketchUp or Excel, and they're all coming together into a singular design environment, and that can't happen if you're not organized on your files. But I don't know. We'll have fun with this and design communication 5 that I'm teaching this semester for third year students. So, okay, that's enough on file management, I think, for the entire day.
What is Design Communication 5?
It is, what's that?
What are you teaching? Like, what program are you teaching in that class? I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we're using both SketchUp and Revit, but
Okay.
the emphasis, what I'm really trying to teach is high-end renderings, but
Okay.
then also how do we think about building information modeling in terms of design context. So because it's kind of it's like a theoretical shift, you know what I mean? Like it's not like, you know, working from AutoCAD or hand drafting where you can kind of zoom from large scale to small scale. You're kind of working across scales all at the same time, and that has slightly different implications of how we're experiencing design, but then questions arise of what does that mean for sort of prototyping design space, right? With virtual reality, photorealistic renderings, manipulating the three-dimensional environment. So who knows? I'm teaching it for the first time too, and this is with the curriculum change. So it's I'll say I've got a rough idea, but it's kind of under development a little bit though too. So we'll see. But I think so far it's going pretty good. Yeah, Shelby, you're the only one. We're talking about design communication 5. Brooks is asking how's it going. How's it going? Just to be honest, you know, you're on the receiving end of the requirements I'm putting out there. So
yeah, I think it's going good. I've really enjoyed the projects that we've had this far. And I feel like I've learned a lot. And honestly, I think the whole class, we just can't wait to start Revit. I think that's like what we're really most looking forward to. So
awesome. Yeah, which will be starting Monday. So
yeah.
as a beginning, it's still with the project. But okay, perfect timing to pop in because Brooke was just like, how's it going? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm kind of, you know, just making things up as I'm teaching this for the first, not really, there is a plan, don't get me wrong, but you know, it's the first time I'm teaching, so I have no idea what's going on the, you know, students end. All right, we need to move on. I'm getting too talkative about the class I'm teaching. And
we have Abby next up on the docket. Abby, if you'd like to share your screen whenever you're ready.
Can everyone see?
Yes.
Okay, so here is my intro cover page. Ooh, next one. Okay, so I knew early on that I wanted to do like a color code system with it. So I have all of my spaces here. Rest was mainly like my like bed space and like where I can like go and just like do nothing. Storage, there's like multiple spaces in my room, so that's like a big aspect, especially in a dorm. Things are all very confined. My desk, which is my workspace, a dresser, my kitchen, I have a mini fridge and like some snacks, so it's my little mini kitchen here, and then obviously the bathroom. And then for lighting, they're all listed there. The furniture that just like came with the room, and then square footage of just the rough room. And so with the color coding, I wanted to make it cohesive through the whole thing. So I made my bubble diagrams have the same colors as the spaces needed. And with the bubble diagrams, I mainly made them in the shape that my room was. And then I added the lines of like how they interact with each other, because in like working from home and being in such a confined space, I definitely wanted to like keep things separate. so I could like feel like I'm going to school and not actually going to school, and it would like increase productivity. So I wanted to keep my like workspace separate from the rest of my room. And so you can see these, the smaller arrows show the like the energy throughout the room, and how I kept all my furniture to, actually, let's look at the floor plan. I kept all my furniture on the outsides of the room to keep like the center more open. And that helps with the like separation that I wanted. And I listed a few specific things. For number one, I have a big rug in the middle of my room. You can see it here. And then a small little navy rug you can see in the bottom of this picture. It's fairly self-explanatory, so I didn't focus a picture on that. I have this little storage trunk that I use as a nightstand, as well as storage for the majority of my art supplies. There's the shelving above my closet that has like a lot of my things. That's one of my biggest storage places. And yeah, there's my desk there. That's pretty much everything. Should I stop sharing my screen or leave it?
I don't think it matters, but I have one comment to make.
Okay.
Since you're still sharing, go to the next slide. So I really like that you used your numbers to code the space, but they're a little small. And I have no background on this project. I don't know how you're submitting it, whatever. But in this format, it's really hard to read where the numbers are on your floor plan.
Okay.
So don't be afraid to make them a little bigger and make them a little more clear so that we can read that. But very good job doing that. It makes it a lot easier to read instead of writing all of that right on the floor plan.
Right.
And I love the colors that you used and how you pulled that through the entire thing, not just with your color coding, but even on this page with your little sketch on the bottom. It brings that concept of like branding almost and with your entire project. So good job on that.
Thank you.
I have one comment, and I love the fact that you put a north arrow on there. That's like
I did.
so telling when you have a north arrow, because then you know which way the sun is coming into your space, and it helps the person who doesn't know how that might influence how you use that space, and when you get good light in the room and when you don't get good light. And now, is this a dorm room? This is a dorm room?
It is a dorm room, yeah.
How does that bathroom work?
So actually, I didn't, how it works, it's my room is connected to the bathroom with a suite mate. And so at the end of here, right by the shower, there's another door that leads into her like 12 by 12 space. And I think the bathroom is part of that. And so that's why I made it like a smaller section of it. But yeah, it is a little confusing not seeing the other half. So it's just kind of like there.
I had a feeling there was something missing because I only saw 2 sinks, and I don't know where the toilet is and where the.
I made that the toilet, and then the shower, and it's because they're like 2 little nooks almost. So that's why I just like had this like blackout space. There probably could be a
area
different
is a void.
Yeah, I think it's just wall.
So your bathroom is actually a U shape. Yeah. With a cubby for the shower, and then the vanity, and then the toilet space. Got it. Okay.
The black.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
You know what? I was reading it as that was the bedroom. I thought that was a bed, and now I get it. It's you're showing
So maybe instead of blacking it out next time, just taking that space and putting an X through it.
Okay. Yeah.
Or indicating, or actually leaving it cut out completely, so that the form would be in the kind of U shape would just make it clearer to read. Would be
it's just so funny how you can misinterpret stuff. You know, as you will mature into this profession, the conventions of drawing and stuff like that will become a little bit more relevant, and why. But it's usually for clarity's sake and making sure that people don't misinterpret things. But before I go away from that, the door swing on that bathroom, is that correct? Is it
It
swinging?
honestly, yeah, it does, because there is like a little metal divider right next to the
Yeah.
toilet. So if you close that door, it's almost like a complete little privacy block, which is good when like having a roommate. So
Right, right. Yeah, it does seem a little strange because it's kind of, usually you open the door against a blank wall,
right.
but so yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was intentional, but it's like kind of a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you live in the valleys?
I do. I live in Valley 1.
I'm in Valley too, so I saw
Oh.
the bathroom thing and I was like, oh, she's in
Right.
the valleys because that door is
Right.
so annoying. But yeah.
Yeah, and like it like slams against it all the time.
Yeah, it's we put like a pressure rod over the like they only give you half of a stall door to block off the
Right.
toilet section. So we put a pressure rod and a big curtain down because we didn't want to have to have our door open the whole time when someone was
Right.
in.
Huh.
It helped a little bit. It helped a little bit.
Yeah. So I have a question. Did you sketch this out to scale? I know you have some dimensions in there, but
yeah, it's kind of to scale. I started on graph paper and I made it like a 2:1. So it's like 1 square was 1 foot. So then I made this like 24 squares long. And some of the furniture probably isn't exactly right, but I like tried to scale it correctly.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good to know that you were going for a relative scaled representation. Okay. Yeah, I think you did a nice job of organizing your thinking, and I like the fact that I think if you go back to the slide before this, that you thought about lighting, because lighting is very important, and sometimes that it becomes a lesser idea in terms of how to organize space, but it very well is important as a spatial organizer, especially from the standpoint of natural light, because sometimes you can't enhance it. The idea of having natural light, you can't just make natural light where it doesn't exist, but you can enhance it by way of, interior lamps and so forth. But recognizing the value that it creates for a space is very important, and I commend you for thinking about that.
Thank you.
Where's Beth? She would love that.
Yeah, Beth would love that.
You'd be all over.
Yeah, she would. She will give you a lecture about it over and over again, but that's good because it is
not just one lecture. There's about 24. In another project.
So I have a question. In your legend, and you mentioned it while you were speaking, you have energy in parentheses.
Yeah.
What exactly are you meaning by energy? Because I think when you explained it, you were indicating.
Yeah. Okay. So I was talking about the emotional impact the spaces have, and then the individual relationships between the spaces. So how like coming in my room, it's all kind of just like a straight open into like this main area. And so I had like from the entrance, it goes like around and comes back around almost. And yeah, how my spaces are all like separated, but they're like at the same time it's like a very radial design, and how everything's pushed off to the side, that like it never feels like suffocating. It just kind of feels very open, and it's like minimal in a way.
So it's how you experience the space for in, and then you go into the back.
Yeah, like similar to how like Victoria did with the arrows. That I guess I kind of did a version of that in my own.
Yeah. Interesting title of energy that you gave that. I wouldn't have normally thought of that. I would have called it like circulation or something like that, but I don't hate energy. I mean, I think it's really interesting, and you connected it to the emotional experience.
Right.
That's really,
I think, especially with like the nature of things right now, and having to be more like at home and like closed like quarters, and like have like creating a space is so important, that like that energy really determines like because like I'm doing everything in here that if like something's off, it would like mess everything up.
So you were even equating it to an emotional understanding of how you use your space, or how the other way around, how your space either creates energy or zaps your energy. And so that's an interesting observation that you're making, and one that you should kind of continue to use, because we can, as we organize space, we can enhance energy, and we can, at the opposite, you could zap energy. You could make it more difficult to navigate a space by the way that you organize it. So that would be one of the beginnings of space design, or space planning design.
Yeah, if energy is a really important part of your space and the bubble diagrams you've made, I might even try to emphasize it a little bit more, since it has just a very lightweight, thin arrow. If it's really important to you and it's a primary aspect, I would think about how you can represent what it really means in relationship to the rest of the space.
Right. Yeah, I think it was kind of just I thought about making the like other arrows bigger, and then I was like, oh, like I need a different kind, and I made it like that. I guess I didn't realize how important I was making it. Now that I'm like sharing it with someone else, I like realize what my real like intentions were, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how when we draw and then speak about what we draw, we realize, you know, parts about ourselves. Awesome. Nice work. Does anybody else have any more comments for Abby?
I do. I think it's super cool that you're already starting to think about like the psychology and energy in a space. You're going to like learn a lot more throughout the program about like the psychology behind color, and kind of why you place things next to each other in a space. And I think it's awesome that you're already starting to think about that, because that might be something you might specialize in or find like really interesting. And without you even, I think, realizing it, like the colors you selected for your bubble diagrams, like the psychology behind those colors, since they're like green and blue, are kind of more relaxing colors. And you were talking about like energy and how you like to have kind of your studying space separate. So it kind of emphasized like your intention for the space and like the programming and planning. So I think that was really cool. And also your sense of branding already. Everyone kind of has their own style for like their sketches and work. And if you kind of figure that out sooner rather than later, you can kind of embrace and expand off of that, because everything's going to be like digital from now on. So super cool. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, if you want to stop sharing your screen, and then we can move on to the next presenter. We've got Shelby on deck. Shelby, if you just want to share your screen whenever you're ready, that would be great.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So I am talking about, we have a toilet room project for Eleonora's class. We had to design a space, and we got the shell of it, but we didn't have a client, so we kind of got to be expressive in that way and figure out what we wanted to do. So this was a partner project, and Ashley Barron and I worked on it together. And so we came up with the selfie toilet room, and I will start flipping. And FYI, I put this in a flip book just to make it easier to show, but it unfortunately splits like a book. And so I'm not able to have the left page blank under a free subscription. So anyway, so we're gonna start with the table of contents, and let me move this. Okay, so first we have our research photos and sort of precedents, if you will. We decided to kind of just go with a minimalism look for the first one. And then we picked out more of a dramatic, modern, contemporary bar for our next one. And I'm just gonna go fast through these. And then we did have to have real life examples where we could actually go into them. And I was at Buddy's Pizza in Portage, and so I took a picture of their bathroom. And I wouldn't say it was the best, but it wasn't the worst. Five Guys as well. And we picked out a really cool, I think this is a hotel bathroom, and it was just kind of a transitional modern glam, I would have described it as. And then the Hermitage Hotel, that was a really cool one. It had like a shoe shine space in the men's bathroom. Actually, let me go to full screen. A shoe shine place for men to get their shoes shined in the bathroom, which we thought that was really cool. And so then we have our ADA compliance area of the package. And there's more of it. And then we have our inspiration photos. And we just kind of decided to lay these out nicely and so that you can read the page better. And as you can see, we went with more of a green, blue type of hue and saturation for the space. And so then we have our concept and then our goal statement. We chose the Classy Bar is located in Nashville, Tennessee, and is owned by a middle-aged couple that considers themselves trendy. Words that describe the venue are classy, dark, intimate, expensive, cozy, and sexy. We wanted the users to feel comfortable and confident in the environment while also feeling safe and secure enough to enjoy using the selfie area. And selfie photos will serve as a memory associated with the bar and a fun night out. The background will act as a theme, allowing the selfie photos to pronounce a popular destination. And so this is our proposed floor plan. And you can kind of see we have our 5-foot radius, and we have our selfie mirror over here in the left-hand corner. And then over here, it's more pronounced, where you can see we actually have a designated space for it, so that you are not, when you take a selfie here, you're not actually taking a selfie into the other sink area or the other flow of the space. And then here are our sections. I think I labeled them wrong. These are sections, not elevations. So here are a few sections of the model that we decided to incorporate to kind of tell our story. And over here we have our proposed materials. We wanted to go for the gold brassy feel in here because we felt that it would allow light to travel further and illuminate the space with having actual less lighting, if you will. And so we only have can lights inside the stalls, and then we have a few lighting fixtures outside, and then we have inlaid lighting in the mirrors and the selfie mirrors in here. And we feel that would actually illuminate the space enough to create that dark, dramatic look. And over here you can see our concept of the mirror and how we want that lighting inlaid. And then here's a couple of perspectives that we decided to incorporate on our last page. And then we get into the construction documents. This was actually our most recent phase because Eleonora split them into phases. And so this part may not be complete, but it's pretty much finished at this point. And so into these are the construction documents that we put together. We have our demolition plan, our floor plan, and our finish schedule. And then over here we have our accessory schedule and our elevations. And then we have I think this was a board that Eleanor wanted us to do and just quickly put together, something that kind of just tells about our space and what our goal was. And so actually for this picture, what I did was, this is basically a representation of what a selfie would look like. This is the background of the selfie in all the photos that people would take. So yeah, if you have any questions or want me to talk more about something, I'm happy to do that because I know I went through that kind of fast. So.
I have a question, a couple of questions, but and I can't flip through this, so
Oh, sure.
Maybe I could. No, I can't. Yeah, let's see. I see you have dimensioned elevations.
Sure.
But let's get to a floor plan.
Okay.
And okay, so here's your floor plan, and I see some dimensions, but the one dimension I'm looking for is not called out, and it's at the entrance. I want to know, visually it looks right, but I think it would be, because this is a bathroom project, it would be really important for you to call out that you have that entrance door with enough dimension to the right side of it for a person in a wheelchair to actually access that door and pull it open. Yep, that's
Sure.
what I'm talking about. Right there. Yeah. How'd you do that, Dustin? That's exactly what I had in mind there. And then also to the left of that door, there's a big void of some sort. Is that a plumbing chase or something, or?
I believed it was a mechanical closet. It wasn't called out in the main floor plan that we had to go off of. So I'm assuming it's more of a mechanical chase because there's no bathroom on the other side of it or anything. So.
Okay. And along with the dimensioning, it maybe, I know you showed something about turning radiuses earlier, but it might be a good thing to show on your dimensioned floor plan that there are adequate turning radiuses for handicap accessibility, because that's one of the most important challenges to designing a bathroom, is making sure that you meet that. And I'm pretty sure you do, so it's not like I'm doubting it, but that one dimension being missing makes me a little curious. And then like inside of the stalls and stuff like that, dimensions that show that it does fall within the ADA criteria. Can you go back further at the beginning pages? Okay, oh, wait a minute, go, okay, stop here, this is good.
Okay.
Okay, now I know you might not have thought about this, so it's okay with me, but just because I can't let it go. I'm always one of those kind of people that is going to tell you when something is a little misleading. You're using a diagram for a bathroom that is accurate within a certain realm of application, but this is not really a good representation of how to design a single toilet stall or single handicap accessible bathroom. And the area where it is misleading is that this layout would only work if that door opens out. And in most applications for a single-use bathroom, it's only going to be able to open out if that doorway that's opening out is meeting a wall. So I wish I could draw. Here's my problem. I don't have a tool to draw all over this. So
yeah, that makes sense. I guess for some reason I was looking at it more as an actual stall, but now looking at it, I think you're right. Those are real walls, and that's a one stall bathroom.
Yeah, and it only really applies if you are able to position it in a way where there's a wall that door opening would rest against. And I see it a lot early on in space planning where people miss that little detail that you can't have a door opening into a corridor, for lack of a better application, or an open space, and not hit somebody who's kind of casually walking down the hallway. That door comes flying open, and that person gets hit in the head. So it's not a good use for, and I think you intended it to be kind of like a generic introduction to the idea of accessible bathrooms. So I probably would have picked a different example to begin the challenge of designing one. And then if let's go back or further into the presentation where you have the selfie area. And I have a question because I don't get it.
The floor plan
Yeah,
or?
this will work. This will work.
Okay.
What's the point of the mirrors?
So the point of the mirrors is for, you've heard of selfies before, correct?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
people will take a picture of themselves in the mirror. And so what we see especially a lot lately is places of interest like bars, for example, and that's why we chose a bar. Women like to take pictures of themselves. I mean, that's just inevitable. And so what we see now is women will take pictures in a bathroom, but it's not a very good picture because you have either stalls in the background, people in the background, or just really ugly walls and fixtures in the background. So we wanted to create a space where women could actually go in and take a nice selfie with their friends, and actually have a very visually pleasing background to match. And we thought, this could actually be a good thing as well for the bar, because if many people took selfies and posted them to social media, it may also in turn generate more users and clients of their bar, because it would become a more pronounced location and destination.
Okay, and I'm with it 100%. I think it's a good idea and whatever, but I just question how the mirror works, because if you're taking a selfie, you wouldn't be facing the mirror, right? Because
your phone would kind of literally be held like this, and you would take a picture with your phone in the
selfie.
Like, people want to get their whole bodies is the point. They want to show off their curves.
You're actually not taking,
that,
you're actually not taking a picture of your face.
Yeah.
You're taking a picture of the mirror.
Right. Yes.
Reflection in the mirror.
Which will reflect the camera too.
Yes, and it would reflect the background.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have to say that I think that is really, really clever and modern and forward thinking to put that space in there. It's very cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I guess because I'm of a certain age, predating selfies, and I know that it's something that is done a lot today. It just seems a little backwards to me that you would have a mirror in there, but I'm not. I get it now. I guess I get it a little bit better than I did before. So yeah, but I do think it's a good idea, and providing. I guess you have two options too. You could do the selfie in the opposite direction if you wanted to. Is that right?
Well, I mean, I suppose you could take one at the mirror behind the faucets in the sink, but we put a trifold mirror here, really so that you could capture all angles, and that you could have a photo of yourself literally from, I don't know how many angles that is, but if you stand in a mirror, how you can see yourself in all angles. And that was kind of our goal, is for people to be able to choose which way they see themselves.
So I have been known to turn my back to the mirror in a dressing room and take a picture over my shoulder to send to my sister and say, does this make my butt look big? Kind of thinking. So I totally.
Yeah. I could see I was thinking about that if you were facing the opposite wall and you take a picture, you would only get the reflection. No, you wouldn't get any reflection of the mirror, but it would give you that option. If you really didn't want to have a selfie mirror, you could have a selfie of yourself without the mirror. So I was thinking, okay, well, you got two choices there at least.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you do. You could, if you just wanted a photo of yourself against the backdrop or something.
Yeah. Us older folk would do that probably. Okay, cool idea. I like it. I think it's interesting and definitely something that would appeal to a lot of people. So yeah, I think you put some good thinking into this. All right, I'll shut up now.
Well, I was just gonna mention to do like the little markups I did. I've got, it says view options, and there's like a little down arrow at the top of my screen, and click on that, and it says annotate, and you get like a set of like drawing and text tools. So that's how that.
It's all over now.
Yeah, what's that? It's all,
It's all
yeah. So
Mary Beth is going to click the red color and she's going to be drawing all over everyone's work.
It's
Yeah,
that's
you're right.
why it's there. That's why it's there. I've become very adept at using the Zoom annotation tools.
I want to do it just to see. I want to
Yep.
go, oh, all
Yeah,
right.
there you go.
That
I'm
was
doing
actually
it.
our agenda for why we're on Zoom.
Dangerous. Thanks, Dustin. Okay, how do I get
No
rid of
problem.
that? How do I?
So there's like there should be like a little clear all clear, and then you can even save it too if you want to save them. Or like I've been doing that a lot in like project management
Erase. Okay,
and clear
got it.
erase.
Okay. Uh-oh, dangerous. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Now that I've harmed Mary Beth, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, great work there, Shelby. This looks like a really nice design.
Well, I do like the Zoom format way better than WebEx, so it's much more graphic.
Yeah, that's what I say, and then I get heat from our peers in the departments, so I don't know what to say.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna bite my tongue a little bit, but you know what I mean. So anyhow, yeah, so all right, move on.
I think you represented the project very well graphically. You definitely came together with like a brand concept to sell your design, so good job with that. And just like Constantina said, this is a very like now trendy thing. Chelsea, Emily, and I always take pictures of bathrooms and send them to each other. So like as you were going through that, I was like thinking of all those times in school when we would be like at random places sending pictures to each other. And now that I'm here without them, I'll go into a bathroom and I'll come out and tell my boyfriend like, that bathroom was so cool. And he's just like, okay, like, so that reminded me of that. I love the finishes that you picked. I am really jealous that you got to pick your own clients for this project because that's fun. And I think you did a really good job developing that and not taking like an easy route out and just doing like a bathroom. The one thing I would comment on, and I can't tell from this page, if you go forward to like a clear floor plan in your, probably in your construction documents. Right there. So your sinks, you have them closer to the top wall. Is that just empty counter towards the toilet side?
Yeah. So Ashley thought of this kind of as a place where women could put their drinks.
Yeah, so
feel comfortable enough to leave your drinks out.
So we actually at work, in every bathroom on campus, we have a counter like that. So because like when you're walking to your next meeting and you have all these papers and stuff and you have to stop in the bathroom, so you have somewhere to set that or your water or whatever. I would just suggest flipping your sinks in your empty counter, because right now, if I'm washing my hands at the sink and looking in the mirror, I'm looking at people taking selfies behind me, which is fine. But if you're the one taking your selfie, like, it might just eliminate some of those like sight lines so people don't feel uncomfortable, people like staring at them.
No,
Just
that's
and it's kind of nice to have that right by the door, so you can like pick up whatever you have as you're leaving, instead of like having to wash your hands, walk back towards the toilets, grab stuff off of the counter, and then out the door.
That's
You know what
true. Yeah, I like that.
I have to say, as one little detail that would be really cool, I would appreciate a hook next to every sink, even if it's just in front of the sink, where I can hang my purse and not get it wet.
Or your winter coat.
Or my winter coat or something. Yeah, just a little more room a little more hang up space in the bathroom.
Sure.
Remember that idea for when you have this project next year.
Yes.
I have to survive this year first, where it's not a guarantee. It's really pretty. It's very classy and elegant and really, really pretty for a residential bathroom. Just gotta say that.
Thank you. We really did take a lot of time working on this, so it's good that it's coming to an end because there have been many sleepless nights over this project. So it's good to hear that our design came off well. So thank you.
When is this project due?
Someday. So
Okay.
yeah.
Tomorrow. All right, does anybody have any last comments for Shelby?
Yeah, make sure you put that dimension by the door in before you turn it in tomorrow.
Yes.
I've got a minor comment. I don't think anything to fret about in your work, but just for general discussion, is it looks like the toilets in the rendering are perhaps wall mounted, right? Or are they floor mounted?
I'm sorry, what was that? You're saying are they wall or floor mounted?
Yeah.
They're wall mounted.
Okay, all right, and then right, because then the other like I don't know, enlarged ADA toilet, it appeared to be floor mount. Right, those are. I forget. It was like that one you had like the square. It was like a representation of ADA
Okay.
restroom. Yeah, it's like yeah. So I guess I just want to point out, since we're kind of like focusing on like ADA clearances, whether or not a toilet is wall mounted or floor mounted has a huge impact on how much clearance we actually have, right? Because if it's wall mounted, then you actually gain some clearance underneath it, so that 5-foot radius can actually like go underneath, where if it's floor mounted, it's all connected to the floor. So yeah, I mean, I like I said, inconsequential to your work, just for the larger discussion we're having, general comments, something to always keep in mind. So I don't know, I see it happen often. Someone will use like a wall mounted toilet just as a placeholder and then change it to a floor mounted, like, okay, now I've got to increase my restroom by about 1.5 feet because some are jutting out much more. So yeah, I don't know. Nice work for sure. Would recommend considering line weights in the future, but that's maybe a minor detail in this. You know what I mean? Because all the working drawings are exactly the same weight.
And hatch your walls.
Yeah. So, but you lost enough sleep over this, like you said. So, you know, you gotta say this is it at some point with every project. You gotta say this is it. I'm done and move on. So, yeah. All right. Cool.
Okay, Constantina, you're up. Share your screen whenever you're ready.
I actually am not certain what I can add to the conversation about bubble diagrams, because your freshmen are amazing. And it's an area that I've been struggling with. And I had two thoughts. The first thought was, I'm a very verbal individual. And so when I think, I tend to think in words, not necessarily graphically. So I think that might be part of it. And then I think the other thought was, I read recently that someone said bubble diagrams are like wedding seating charts. And you really don't want to put your drunk uncle at the table with all the young, cute bridesmaids kind of thing. So in that, as a way to think about it. So I was really hoping for more of a conversation about a bubble diagram. So I'll show you what my screen has up on it at the moment. This is a doodle of actually my house. Oh, did it not click over? It did not click over. Sorry, hang on one second. Okay, there it is. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is actually a bubble diagram, a little doodle of my house. And so for those of you that don't know, I live with an architect, and this was a conversation in the last couple of days about how you could theoretically represent where we live in a bubble diagram, because I'm really, really struggling with we just started on the museum project. Actually, it was due this week, and so trying to space plan it with bubbles, I couldn't really wrap my brain around how to make that happen. So we were talking about how the kitchen next to the dining room and possibly the kitchen next to the family room, and you have an entry space. And then when you look at our bedroom wing, because the house has a bedroom wing, you literally have 2 bedrooms lined up on one side of the hallway with a bathroom at the end, and then the master suite is on the other side of the hallway. And so this is theoretically what bubbles for our house would look like. And then it got a little bit more complicated at the idea of, well, how do you look at how you move through this space? And so this was really helpful to me, because I'm serious. I can tell you all day long how I think the space needs to go together, but how to put it in bubbles and how to make the bubbles work and show adjacencies, I really don't get. This is Beth's PowerPoint for the class for this particular project, and I'm not getting it, and I'm not getting how to put the colors into it, and I'm just not. This image makes more sense to me because it's showing the grouping of things together, but the putting all the bubbles in a circle and trying to draw lines to connect them, I'm just not comfortable getting to. And then this one shows more of floor space, and it didn't occur to me that I needed to know I should know or be aware of the square footage of how much space I need before I start putting something together. Because especially with the museum project, we had just under 1,300 square feet per floor, and yet the requirements for the ADA bathroom and the ADA elevator and for the emergency stairs literally took up 300 square feet of each floor. And so it wasn't until I actually started trying to make things in the right proportion fit in the space that I kind of got my brain wrapped around it. So how do you look at a space? And I'm telling you, these freshmen have it down to a science. How do you look at your space and say, how do you know how to represent what goes together is my question, actually. Because I'm not good with this.
So I mean, I feel like if you ask everyone, they're going to have a different opinion on how bubble diagrams are utilized in their design process. And there's not even agreed upon definitions of how they're used. I mean, start off by saying I was told to never show anyone a bubble diagram because it's ugly or what have you, but I reflect to my experience, and I've actually got a lot of mileage out of sharing bubble diagrams with clients to assure that I'm on the right track before I invest the time to fully develop a floor plan. So the way that's been ingrained in me to work, that was introduced to a professor very early on, and I was like, I don't know about this, and then I tried some other things. Now my whole career is kind of like, this is what I believe in. So the process I believe in when it comes to bubble diagrams, which of course is totally me and what I found works, is I really need to focus on what I'm trying to accomplish with the bubble diagram. So there's kind of like 3 phases, which it looks like Beth is kind of suggesting to you as well. There's a bubble diagram that's just focused on relationships, visual connections, physical connections. Normally there's 3 levels of physical connections, and it's really important to look at that independent of the physical space, because I need to establish like what are the connections, and then begin to formulate that bubble diagram into a representational floor plan. And then from there it goes to a block diagram. The reason that interconnections are important is because, as we saw on the first presentation, I want to say is we can have activities that are overlapping. I mean, you talked about a stairwell and a restroom. Well, technically you have space underneath a stair that could technically accommodate a restroom. So those are the types of conceptual explorations it's impossible for me to do if I don't have these like super focused bubble diagrams of saying this is how I need the spaces to interconnect. And normally they're complemented by a space index table as well. I don't know if you've seen one of those. They look like kind of a triangle.
Yes, yeah.
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 So those I think kind of complement bubble diagrams. So that's my take and perspective on it. But like I said, everyone is kind of different, and just, you know, everyone kind of uses these tools a little bit differently, I would say, in their own processes. So
I swear it would be easier if I could use Legos and
Better?
just
Well,
block things out with Legos and make patterns with
Legos.
Legos.
well, I can't you? I guess can you not use Legos? Is that prohibited?
I guess I can ask Beth the next time we have to do a bubble diagram if I can bring
Online.
Legos.
Well, I'm here.
Oh, hi.
So, you just have to give it a little time. This is just one beginning, and that's why if you reflect back on the presentations I presented to you over about creativity and the idea of there's many ways to, what they used to say is many ways to skin a cat. It's a disgusting thing. But so the next step, you'll notice that in your reading for next week, I'm going to introduce to you Rangel's version of this. This is the Mary Beth version, right, Mary Beth? Of how to, one way to do bubbling. Everybody will have their way, and as you get more experienced, it will become more evident. So it's, you know, it's just getting a couple projects under your belt. You've just really been creative once for just this one time so far in the class and things. So anyway, that's my input.
Well, but we did use bubble diagrams in our intro to interior design class, and I still didn't. I guess what I'm saying is I'm still not picking up on how it's supposed to be working.
we went through the exact PowerPoint in my intro class because
I do it that way.
Yeah, but it sounds like what you're missing, and maybe I can interject something to clarify it, is that the diagram that we're looking at right now is not showing you the progression of the steps that precede what this image is that you're looking at. And if you kind of recall, probably the way Beth explained it and the way that I explained it is you start out with just a circle that doesn't have any color, but it's labeled kitchen. Right. And for each one of those things, you don't add color, but you add the color after you've identified that the kitchen needs to be near the dining room. Now, you didn't need to do this diagram to figure that out. You knew it already.
Right.
And so if you look at this as if all the bubbles were things you knew nothing about other than because they're not a home, right. They're a science lab, or they're some...
or the museum, yeah.
Yeah. So the idea of labeling what all those areas are and arranging them in a circle in a very neutral setting, not applying color yet, you could then begin to diagram what needs to be near what. So you may have an area for displaying rugs or something, I don't know, whatever it would be. And that there's an important thing that you identified in your program about a rug display and maybe a seating area or something else. I don't know what, but you defined it as those two things need to be near each other. Well, then you would draw a line to connect them. And by the time you're done doing that in this circular manner with making all those linear connections, you can then identify a pattern that confirms a grouping of things that need to be together, and that's where you would apply the color. So now then you apply that to the next step where you have now grouped all those like items together in the subsequent slide, and that also begins to give you that sensibility about what needs to be where. And then you have to acknowledge the fact that they're not all identically sized spaces. Some are small, some are bigger, and you have to apply that understanding to the next slide, because you will have a bathroom, which is itsy bitsy, and a living room that's quite larger. And that will guide you into how you begin to manipulate the requirements within a given space. But doing it from an abstract bubble diagram form gives you the freedom of not thinking about the actual shape of the space yet, but focusing on the adjacencies that need to be met. And so then the subsequent 2 slides show how that idea of an abstract bubble diagram can then be positioned within a regimented shaped space.
So it almost sounds like the step I'm actually missing is I don't have enough information to start making bubbles.
Well, you would probably have a program that precedes the bubble. You have a given set of spaces that are necessary, that need to be accommodated, and you expand on what those are. I would think in the museum, you're being left to investigate that a little bit more on your own. So you're defining the program much more so than being given a prescribed list of things that have to go in each area. Is that right, Beth?
That's true. And Constantina did a very good job on her research, and she defined those spaces ahead of time. It's interesting she didn't ask me any of these questions when she was doing her bubbles, but I think what might enlighten her is I just put them online. I put a PowerPoint of Rangel's version of bubbling. And as Dustin said, everybody bubbles sort of differently. And so I wanted to just start from what you had learned from intro with Mary Beth. And then I choosing not to represent bubbling all over again. I've just put a reading assignment for chapter 3 of Rangel's textbook that we're now going to dive into pretty deep, and the PowerPoint for it online, and it shows his bubbling methods. So it should give you a nice variety to choose from. And I think some of our alumni would probably agree, you start to develop your own as you get going.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually want to add a little bit too. My perspective, I struggled a lot with bubbles.
You're really good at what you do. So to know that you struggled with this is kind of a relief, because I feel like I'm missing.
Right. Yeah. But I will tell you, like in school, when you're given a project, you're like, okay, I have to get this project done. And instead of, so you try to take on too many chunks at a time. So I think instead you need to really sit down and and our projects are a little bit smaller, right? Like, you know what goes in a house.
Right.
So a bubble diagram feels dumb because you already know what a typical house looks like, right? But the way that we innovate and create these new ideas is by taking the time to really think about these relationships and, sit down and do the bubble diagram without thinking ahead to like what the shell of the space looks like or anything like that. So I think if you just slow down a little bit and just like, I am only doing this adjacency bubble diagram right now, then I'll move on to the next step, and then I'll just does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. And unfortunately with the museum, I had in my head that instead of starting a building from scratch, I thought it would be really cool to renovate a warehouse in the London Docks area, because it's an area that's got a renaissance going on. And so tea is an import. I just had this whole, and I was watching Hamilton way too much this summer. So I had this whole, I want a ratty old warehouse. So I had a preset rectangular shape that had to fit everything in. So there wasn't a lot of flexibility in
right.
Yeah, I think it turned out pretty cool, but we'll see. I don't know that Beth's actually looked at it yet, so we'll see what she thinks.
Well, we've had a lot of conversation about it, and
yeah,
I don't like to squash in this project. I don't like to squash anybody's ideas. So I let you go ahead with that, but I was a little hesitant because a big part of this project is manipulating those 9 squares.
Right.
And so I remember I kept reminding you of that. And so I think you turned out, and it has a lot of thought to it, and it's got a lot of that exploration, but you still are pretty rectangular. And that's okay, because we decided, we had a conversation about it, and we decided for your project that was good. That was okay. So, yeah.
I think that works.
All the projects are up in the hall, so if anybody's ever in the studio, you can peruse them. A few people, for some reason, they can't find more boards, so I have to, someone said, I put a sticky note on a board, but it's disappeared, and I had them all pull out a board and put a sticky note saying it's theirs. But anyway, there's a couple people who aren't up because of that, but they're now finished, and we move on to the next. It's just important, I think, to get one really creative, non-conforming project under your belt, and then you can have lots of questions about that. So good.
I have a ton of questions, but that's normal for me. So, okay.
I would just mention too, and I mean this in the best way, just like relax a little bit, because I think you did a very decent bubble diagram for me in Design Communication 3 for the Flamingo Center, right? I'm actually staring at it. I looked it up just to confirm.
Okay.
It's visually appealing. The spaces feel proportional. It feels well planned out. So, I mean, to say you don't know this, I don't believe it, because I'm looking at evidence that suggests otherwise right now. So
I think the Flamingo project was really easy because you were very specific in sizing as to how big the areas needed to be. So I don't know, and maybe I just need more research.
No, I think, but that's what I'm thinking, is maybe it's being overworked. All bubble diagrams are as easy as that felt, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They
Constantina,
really are. They're very relaxed, very focused. So,
did you receive a floor plan or a building shell when you did the Flamingo?
No, we had to start completely from scratch.
So I think that's probably what felt the difference, because now you're thinking about having, walls around your bubbles, but really bubble diagrams aren't always associated with the space that they correlate to. They're an exploration of how the spaces relate to one another. So they don't need to be conforming to any sort of shell or floor plan. They don't need to reflect the actual floor plan when you're, in the early concept phases of exploring spaces.
Okay.
And I've found for myself, you mentioned Legos, and I'm wondering if it's because it has a 3-dimensional aspect.
Maybe.
The dollar store sells these styrofoam balls, and they come in all sizes. You can get really small ones and like larger ones in a bag. And I have found that to be a kind of an idea generator when I'm trying to be creative. I will, assign each size ball, the relative size, a program element. And then instead of laying them out on 2D, pin them to one another, because sometimes, spaces have larger volumes and things overlap. And they aren't necessary. It helps visualize things a little bit more. And then you might realize that you can move some of the bubbles around to still achieve the same program requirements and criteria, but in a completely new way that you hadn't thought of before.
Okay.
Sometimes that is a useful exercise in, looking at that before going to paper, if you're a 3-dimensional person.
Yeah, it's a struggle. And I know that all of our assignments are going to require it. And I know that as I move forward as a designer, being able to graphically represent things is a requirement, is a absolute necessity. So I gotta figure this one out. So
I'd like to add one more thing to just as a comparison. And I obviously been teaching a long time, and so I've seen the struggle that people have with bubble diagrams repeatedly. And I think that what happens is a lot of people want, they want much more clarity from the get-go. I don't really feel like you realize you're saying it, and I'm not saying you're saying this actually,
Right.
but a lot of times I get this, well, just tell me what to do, you know, and
right. We're students. You're the teacher. We need to, there's a criteria we have to meet. Yeah.
If we really don't want to script your action, other than that we want to start analyzing and thinking about and pulling things apart and digging into its purpose, and out of that will come a better understanding of the parts. And so when you dissect them, you pull them apart, you analyze them and think about them, and really question, well, why is it this way, or why, the whys. Then you as a designer have the ability to assemble it so that it makes better sense. So first you got to pull it apart and dissect it and think about it, and then you got to reassemble it in a way that that brings your level of new awareness and thinking. So in my mind, and it may be just the way that I work, which might not be the way that you kind of diagram it, whatever, but the important step is to pull it apart and to really, really dig into. And I think that's kind of what the freshmen are doing right now with their dorm room, or where they live, is that I think Kim is asking them to dig in and pull it apart and analyze it. And they aren't exactly reassembling it in a different way, but that would be an interesting next step to do that. Like, okay, if I get a chance to redesign this dorm room, how might I? And that's probably not a good challenge because it is so small and specific. But if you think about it as an experiment that would apply to every project you do, you're given something and you're asked to reimagine it, to rethink it, put your design touch, whatever you want to call it, to it. But that is really born out of being able to analytically think it through and to come to a better and different answer than what they have right now. And the best way to start to do that is to probably make a bunch of messy bubble diagrams. They don't have to be beautiful. They can end up being beautiful, but they don't have to start out being beautiful, as you demonstrated with just your legal pad sketch that you did. There's a lot of those that will be done, and the more the better, the more clarity you get from doing them. So don't give up on it yet.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Any comments before we move on to Brooke? Okay, Brooke, whenever you're ready, if you want to share your screen. I think you mentioned you wanted to just show us what you're up to and all the cool things you're doing these days.
Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what my position is and some projects, well, really one project that I've been working on very recently. So this is where I work at Lockheed Martin Space in Littleton. For reference, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but this is my office building right here. So on our campus in Littleton, we have about 5,000 employees, which is a lot of people. We take up 5,400 acres. So like our property goes way up on these mountains. You can't see behind us, but we have like recreation fields. It's a huge space. We have 2 cafeterias, which are new, a bunch of cafes. We have masseuse on campus, fitness centers, and recreation fields. So as you can see, there's a lot of different types of spaces that we're in charge of, aside from offices and our production facilities. And fun fact, my favorite part about campus, the wild turkeys, elk, and bears. I have not seen a bighorn sheep yet, and I only heard a bear, but I've seen the turkeys and elks. So we are considered workspace management. So what goes into that, we do occupancy planning. So we have a lot of different programs, which are departments, but it's the Lockheed way to call it a program. So we look at how much space do we have existing in buildings, and then we look at programs that need to go into different types of either production facilities or office areas or anything else. So what program requirements do we have, and how do we fit those into our existing spaces to make sure that everyone has a spot? One really interesting thing about working with Lockheed specifically is classified spaces, which a lot of people don't get to touch on, but it's real weird. Obviously, in a classified space, only people who need to know need to be in that space. So as facilities, when we go in there, there's like red lights going off and they're yelling that they are not secure because obviously we're not allowed to see what's going on. So that's very interesting. Another big part of our job is moves management. That's right now we're looking at shoving that off onto someone else so we don't have to deal with it anymore. But basically what that is we have 5,000 people on campus. We need to make sure everyone is sitting in a spot that's appropriate for them. So obviously if you don't have a security clearance, you can't sit in a classified area, or just based on what projects are going on or programs are in a certain office building. We can't have people mixing and mingling depending on what their programs are. And then along with that, we often get requests to change the furniture to accommodate users. We do a lot with ergonomics. So we'll send someone to study someone working for a day to see what their sitting position, their standing position, and if it's causing them any discomfort, and how we can help alleviate that with different furniture. So that's pretty interesting. And then the fun stuff, we have big and small projects. The small projects, which we usually refer to as quick builds, are just like really quick stuff. One that I'm working on right now is we have in a classified space a conference area. And they want to put cubicles in there so that people who work on classified spaces or programs can go in and work on their work, but they don't have like a seat on campus. So they usually don't do classified work. They'll just come in for the day. So that's kind of a small project that I have going on, just switching out furniture. And then for bigger projects, we'll obviously choose the finishes if we're redoing a space. I have one project right now where we're doing a presentation room, which is pretty interesting. So right now it just has these really ugly chairs with the tablet arms. Think of a lecture hall. So we're putting in new fixed tables with chairs that are powered so you can bring in your laptop and work while presentation is going on. So it's been a pretty interesting project for me. And then the last part of what we do is future workplace strategy. So looking at Lockheed Martin as we are today, how we work as a company and the people who work for us, and how we can create spaces for new engineers coming in. So one really interesting thing, in my opinion, is during the recession, the last recession, considering we're kind of in one now, Lockheed Martin didn't have an opportunity to hire a lot of new engineers. So there's a huge like blank area. So we have a lot of boomers, we have some millennials, and a lot of Gen Zers coming into the company now, but in that middle, we kind of missed everyone. So we are creating workspaces for the newer generations while we still have boomers, and those people don't work the same way. So how do we transition these spaces so that everyone's happy? So the project I want to touch base on with you guys is this new lease building. I can't share too many details. One, we literally just signed the lease, and two, obviously I can't share too much with you, or that's a security issue, but right here I have the building for you to look at, just a generic office building that's not too fun. It does have really good window space. There's actually views of downtown Denver and of the mountains. So that's fun. Then we have a large cafe on the 5th floor. We're taking all 6 floors, so we'll be able to design the cafe. We're doing the first 2 floors to be completed by July 2021. So we have to hit the ground running. And then the last 4 floors will come after that. So we just want to make sure we can get some people moved in early on in the lease, and then we'll start tackling those upper floors. So one very interesting thing about working with a facilities department is you have a lot of standards. So this is our current cubicle standard, pretty close to it anyway. It's a 6x6 footprint. And I know that it's the trendy thing right now to talk about like free address and benching and, you know, lack of privacy in the work area. But we have found that, especially looking at those 2 types of workers we have, the boomers and the younger generation, we still need to have cubicles, especially with security and privacy for those different programs. So we still use the cubicle, but it's 6x6, which is a pretty small space. That's what I have at work, and I really like having that little space that's my own, but it's still open enough that I don't feel like I'm completely closed off. These are the finishes that we have standard. So these work surfaces are this maple, our tack boards are this cream color, and then the panel frame is this warm white, and then the legs and this stuff is actually white. We include a task light, obviously, with each work area. And another interesting tidbit, all of our task lights have to be made in the United States. They cannot be foreign, something to do with, I don't know, people can sneak in something on a light and be able to hear what's going on. I don't know. But I thought that was interesting when I heard it. Each of our workstations also has one of these, we call them poofs, but it's an ottoman. But we'll use poof to, you know, appease them. And each one is, we have like 5 different colors. So that adds a little splash of color into the space. That's really fun. So the conceptual design for this building, me and the other designer that are working on it, we wanted to be setting a precedent for the future of Lockheed Martin. So we want to create a space where younger engineers want to come to work, and we're targeting it towards them. So we're using kind of a fun color palette, in my opinion, to help bring in those colors that really creates a diversity in the space. So we have this concept where each of the floors will be a different, I hate to say theme, but based on a different aspect of space. We have stars, planets, comets, astronauts, rockets, and satellites. We had thought a second about doing aliens, but thought that might be a little too far. So we went with comets instead. And we're not going to go like super themey with it, but the idea is maybe in the elevator lobby, we'll have fun facts about like different stars, planets, astronauts, satellites we've developed. And then just like the colors and some of the textures and stuff might mimic back to those themes. In this space, we'll have free address for teleworkers, which is just that concept where because of COVID, we're all working, not all of us, most of us are working from home. So a lot of employees are going to continue teleworking after COVID is said and done, whenever that may be. They've discovered that these people can be very productive from home. I'm thinking more like HR representatives, for instance. They can be productive at home, but sometimes it's nice to have a spot to come to campus, especially if you have meetings or you need to be collaborative with your group. So we're introducing this free address area so that teleworkers will have a space to come in if they want to. They can rent a space for a day or a week, however long. But they don't technically have a cubicle that they live in. We'll also have live-in cubicles for employees that are assigned or badged to that building. Right now, we're doing our communications group, which will be really fun. Their workspace right now is really fun and very textured and colorful. So I'm really looking forward to developing a space for them. We'll also have lots of open collaborative spaces. We're hoping to touch on that serendipity of those unexpected connections that you make, especially when you're like at the work cafe. You know, you see the same person every day, you might strike up a conversation, and who knows where that innovation can go. We're integrating some phone booths as well, just so that those people, especially the free address teleworkers who are working for a day, will have a spot where they can take a phone call or have some respite space, so, you know, a little quieter, to do some heads down work. And then these are just some very conceptual, very early finished suggestions I've pulled together. Hopefully you can see the where I'm pulling from with those space themes or concepts. So, you know, we have the stars and comets. These kind of remind me of like the trails of comets. I love this carpet. I used it in my thesis too. I'm obsessed with it, and I'm going to try to, you know, get everyone on board with that. And you guys don't have background with Lockheed Martin, but when I think of like space, I think of silver, because rockets, I don't know if that's just me or what, but so we'll be using a lot of silver accents, which isn't super trendy, but it's definitely rooted in that Lockheed Martin brand. So then for those of you who don't know me, I don't know if there's anyone still here that does, this is my information. As always, feel free to shoot me emails. I'm always, always, always happy to answer questions. And now I will take your comments and concerns.
What a nice overview of what you're doing these days, Brooke. It's great to see this. And I think that you probably are doing meaningful and interesting things in the field of interior design, and applying it to a corporate setting that is probably filled with lots of discovery and learning new things. But that after now you've been there about a half a year, and it's just great to see the kind of things that you're being able to get involved with.
Yeah,
and how it does kind of reflect back on school in some degree, but definitely with much more scale and opportunities. So yeah. Great job.
Brooke, have you seen the show called Devs?
No.
DVS?
No.
So as you were presenting your facilities and even the aesthetics and the, you know, priorities and the social culture, I couldn't help but think of this show. It was just a 1-season series, and it is about office company very similar to yours. It's not an architecture firm, but it is in technology and science. And I think, you know, you would be interested in, I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, you're definitely giving me Devs vibes.
If you guys have any questions about like facilities in general, I know it's not touched on about, we do not touch on it at school a lot. I'm more than happy to give you any answers that I can that relate to that too. Beth,
so I imagine Lockheed Martin hires external architects and interior design firms, correct?
Yeah, we do.
So what does that RFP process looks like, and how can I respond to it?
So I
am curious because it's an interesting thing, right? You're a design professional within a company that also hires other design professionals.
Right.
So, yeah.
I don't have a ton of experience with it yet, but I am working on a project or a group of projects really with our factory building, which is, you know, very heavy production. And we have hired an architecture and engineering firm to do a lot of the work. So really for that project in particular, a lot of it is just them asking me for specifics on our finish standards, you know, where can they apply paint or wall covering or whatever. And outside of that, there's not a whole lot of furniture going in there. So one interesting thing about facilities too, at least at Lockheed, is we have a lot of furniture. So we contract with Elements, which is a Knoll dealership, and they hold on to all of our furniture in a warehouse. So literally when someone's like, I need a new cubicle, I'm like, okay, we'll just grab it out of the warehouse, which is a very interesting concept that you just hold on to. Literally, I think right now, because we have this new project going on, we already bought the cubes. We have like over 7,000 cubicles just hanging out in a warehouse. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, actually, so that brings another thing that has my interest. I mean, because I kind of experienced this as well when I worked for Autodesk. You know, a technology-focused, future-forward firm. I imagine Lockheed's the similar way in that environmental practices, sustainability have a very large impact in the way that they approach the construction of some of these new projects. So I don't know if you are able to kind of touch on that, because I imagine they want to, you know, manage the material. I mean, they're one of the top engineering firms, and that has an influence on how they approach construction, I imagine. So
yeah, so I don't know a whole lot about it specifically yet, just because I haven't been involved in like the follow through projects quite yet. But we do have employee resource groups, which are just like student organizations, but for employees of Lockheed Martin. For reference, Lockheed Martin has like 110,000 employees. So it's pretty interesting. So we actually did just start a sustainability resource group. And one of the big topics that we've been discussing is how can we bring more green solutions into the workplace. So that'll be interesting to see how that develops and how we can influence the decisions being made at the top.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always fascinating. At least like more technology-induced facilities have been involved with the design of, and the kind of requirement for like really specifics on materials, applications, sourcing, all of that. And just it's interesting how that dynamic can really change the way we organize a project, and I think for the better. So
yeah,
I'm going to continue to ask you about this throughout the years of you working there, because I'm really interested. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think firms like Lockheed Martin and other, like Tesla, for example, I mean, they're building all these new factories that are going to have like zero waste. Like they're pushing the design profession in a better direction, even though that isn't their core business, but just approaching it in kind of an engineered way, if you will. So.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting how much, like I said, we have this resource group that just started that's hoping to have that influence. And it's very interesting how I think maybe anyone else older than me can speak to this, but it seems like now there's a drive for employees to help push that culture and that focus, and rather than just leadership making the decisions for the ship, right? If we have this resource group, we can generate these ideas and educate our leadership on the importance of them so that we can help implement things in the future.
I think you're right, Brooke. I think that it's going to be just like they're saying, it's the elementary school students that are driving even things that are going to happen in the future. But right now, even at this time. So, boy, are you making me walk down memory lane of my 3 years of facilities management position. Be careful that you don't get too bogged down with inventory. So that's a big part of facilities often, is that aspect. I don't know if you have a separate person who does your inventory.
Yeah, we have a max coordinator. So if anything comes in just for like, I want to sit a stand instead of a station desk, he takes care of that, and he also helps man our on-site inventory. So we have inventory on-site in our factory, and then with just like chairs, sit stands, things like that we go through quite a bit more often. And then we have off-site inventory that's managed by Workspace Elements, which is a dealership, and so they manage that for us.
That's great, because that if you still want to do design, if you are also in charge of that inventory, it can really bog you down, and I think be a detriment to you doing creative things. But you also contacted me about auditoriums, so I'm curious whatever happened to your auditorium.
So we are just getting into it now. So when I contacted you before, we were just doing really preliminary, like cost opinions. So when I showed the team, so I showed them just regular auditorium seats, pretty similar to what they have now. The fixed tables with the swing chairs, which is what I had contacted you about. Mm-hmm. And they decided that they liked the fixed tables, but they don't like the swing idea because they can be hard to get in and out of, which I think if they tried some higher end ones, they would probably find that they're fine, but they decided to go with a loose chair with it. So hopefully nobody rolls off of anything in the tiered seating, but that's what they want to go with. So that's where we are. We just got the go ahead for capital. So I think we're going to start getting some furniture soon.
Yeah, well, make sure you match your casters to the type of flooring, because that's when you would really have a problem there.
Yep, I will.
Do you remember what it is? But soft surface, hard casters, just the opposite.
Yep.
All right. Yeah.
Kedzie leading in the. All right. Thank you, Brooke.
Oh, I have to stop, don't I? There you go.
Thanks, Brooke.
Kedzie, go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right. Let me see. Okay, so I am going to share my museum project. Is everyone hearing me and seeing this okay? Or
yes.
Okay, so I'm going to share my museum project that I just turned in for Beth's class this last Tuesday. I really just kind of want to talk about the process that I took to get where I finished, and then the challenges I had with it, and then also like what I think I ended up learning like at the end. So my topic that I was assigned was Indian spices, and it kind of scared the crap out of me at first because we did not do much like cooking in the family when I was growing up. I know nothing about spices, so I was like, oh boy, I've got a lot of research ahead of me, but I ended up, everything was fine. So from my research, I created my concept. I'm just going to read my concept statement because I think it does justice at explaining it pretty well. So the concept for this Indian spice museum was sparked by the creation of masala. It is a common spice blend used in Indian cuisine. The idea that small parts contribute to a whole to create unity within diversity is a common theme throughout the space. This museum aims to provide a vivid cultural experience and take the user on a trip through history and tradition. The space supports the idea that there is a common meeting place in the center, as there is for spices when creating masala. This Indian Spice Museum shows that Indian spices are as rich in history as they are in flavor. So, and then off to this side is my inspiration picture that's actually like, it kind of represents how masala is made, but all those spices that you see around the outside are like ground up and then they are put in together to make that spice blend. So I started first by bubble diagramming. I did it per floor because I thought that that was going to be the easiest way for me to do it instead of having one large one that was just every single exhibit and area. So I just decided to do it by floor because I thought that was easier. I separated like spaces by exhibits, if they were private or public or not, and stuff like that. Then I started trying to create a new structure shape with, I was given like a 36 by 36 foot box to start off with, but I knew in the end I didn't want to have it as just a box because it didn't really go with my concept or what I wanted the experience to feel like. So that was actually one of my biggest challenges, was trying to come up with a shape that allowed my concept to be seen and like experienced. I struggled a lot. You can see down near the bottom, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but pretty much all of this whole row and all of this up here didn't end up working out because I wasn't drawing to scale. I was kind of just trying to get ideas out. And once I started drawing my ideas to scale, I noticed that it wasn't going to be feasible to leave that center space that the other areas were going to contribute to, and have enough space around it for there to be circulation and flow and everything. So I kind of had to start from square one after coming up with like 4 or 5 ideas. And then I ended up coming up with this shape that you see here in the middle that I ended up using for my final floor plans. I also struggled just with not being in the studio and working from home. I thought before the project started, I was like, oh, I got this. I have a big desk in my room, but just having that person-to-person interaction, not only with like my instructor, but also the other designers, just like bouncing ideas off of them, was a whole different experience. I felt like I was kind of doing it all on my own, which was kind of scary because being that it was the first big project, I was like, dang, there's so much that I feel like I get in class that I'm not having now. So I did see how much I really valued studio time. So now that it's done, it was hard and stressful, but I actually am pretty proud of what I've accomplished. I feel like I learned a lot about how I interpret information and create a concept. Also, just how I work through the design process. I remember learning freshman year that in the design process, you can use it like almost backwards sometimes. So I did find myself like going back and looking at my original ideas from a new perspective and just tweaking some things around. And that's how I did end up getting to the final structure and just placement of everything. But yeah, I'm actually happy with how it turned out. Hopefully Beth thinks the same thing. She did help me with some specific questions, but haven't really gone over everything with her yet. So this is probably the first time she's seen all of it together. I'll try to zoom in. Is this zooming in for you guys?
So Kenzie, yeah, I think something you should talk about is how many times we talk to each other via text, via email during the time. So.
Yeah. So I probably annoyed the crap out of Beth because I had so many questions, but in class, I just like usually have so many questions and usually I get that direct feedback. So I was literally sending Beth like 6 messages a day trying to ask for help, and she did good at getting back to me because I know there was a lot of other students probably asking the same questions, but just the whole experience of working through like my first bigger project, not being in the studio with Beth was stressful to say the least.
I think you did pretty good. I at least for other instructors, I wanted to share that was the only way I could do this, is to make myself pretty much accessible 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, Beth had a schedule like in person on like Zoom and WebEx, like 15-minute meetings with her, which were very helpful because the whole time it was just like you knew it was just you and the instructor, and she was dedicated to helping you figure out any problems or questions that you had.
And they were 30-minute segments.
30, that's what I meant.
Yeah, but they felt like 15, didn't they?
Yeah, felt like 5.
I know. And to be able to give everybody 30 minutes, I had to work all day Friday too. So it's really hard to do beginning studio stuff from a distance. And one of the things, even though I say it 100 times and I do these little running pantomimes of fire, door swing. I still have Kidsey with her front door swinging in.
No, I noticed that when I got done and I was like, oh my gosh.
That's right.
So I have a few, yeah, it's a very challenging semester. Does this building have a location to it, or is it just
it's in Mumbai, India.
Okay,
so
good. That's going to support my comment even more. So when I got done with graduate school, I actually spent a month in Ahmedabad, India. I was actually there studying the architecture. And so, of course, the architect also is going to come out. And so, yeah, I mean, your work's fantastic. This isn't to take away from this, about to have some discussion. What happens often in India is this kind of segment, these glass portions are pulled inward a little bit, and then kind of above that, there's sort of a roof. And that's created to create kind of the shading element. But the reason I'm mentioning it is because this kind of interaction that happens between the architecture and passive design really begins to inform the interior design as well, because it begins to kind of frame spaces. Very famous example is Le Corbusier and the way he introduced the Brise Soleil, which are these, like, you can kind of Google it afterwards, but there's these like massive vertical and horizontal fins that are so large to actually begin to create rooms. But they were designed to create kind of shading and passive ventilation, and they're big open spaces. And that would be another thing to maybe consider too, is I know Mumbai is not too far from Ahmedabad, and the temperatures get so hot that it's actually impossible for air conditioning to keep up with it. So rather than having like a fully enclosed building, it tends to have more kind of openings, which was interesting. I went to a number of museums that just had big openings, like right in the middle of the building. So I don't know, just some things to think about that I think's, you know, always interesting, is we want to think about how does the interior design and architecture become informed by the context where we're surrounded. So
yeah, one of the when I was struggling on trying to figure out what I wanted the shape of my structure to look like, let me scroll down a little bit. I actually ended up doing a lot of stuff on CAD because I was just getting so frustrated of erasing and like drawing it on paper, and I'm like, I just need to like start working. But here are some CAD files here that kind of show like how I got to the shape that I ended up with. I was thinking in terms of, because I knew that that center area and then having the room surround it wasn't going to work with the square footage and the circulation and everything like I mentioned earlier. So I really started looking, actually went on Google Maps and just typed in Mumbai, India, and I like zoomed in. It had like, kind of like if you look up Washington, D.C., like where all the monuments and everything is at and all the important architecture. And I saw that in Mumbai, there was a few like famous monuments and stuff that they actually, it looked like kind of like in New York City, you know, in Manhattan, that section where they actually built like a rectangle like off of the land, like it's a man-made kind of place for buildings to go. I saw that they did that for a few in Mumbai, and I was like, I don't want to have that to happen. So I kind of was looking at like the shape of the coastline, like working across, so you can see like this section is kind of zigzagged. So I was thinking like it could rest like along the coast without having to put that extra effort in of building like land for the museum to sit on if it was put on the coastline. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a very I'd say healthy way of thinking, because I know something we touched on when you had me for design communication. Like, we're talking about iconography, right, and the connection between icon and building formation, and how that kind of plays out, especially in museum design, because so many museum designs have this like distinguishing factor of like this very characteristic form to it. Like, it can be distilled down to a simple icon. So
right.
And I think yours does that very similar thing. Like, it's like if I was just to draw lines, like, you know, there's a circle and there's another circle, like it could be distilled down to that item that can just function as an icon. So
right.
yeah.
One of the things that we have to remember, Kidzi, is that this project is not finished.
Right.
I don't think everybody realizes that we're in the pause page. So this project is given around a series of 10 presentations from Lesky's thoughts on creativity. And so this project comes to something she calls the pause phase, or the pause time, where you get to do exactly what Kidsy's doing, share it, get some input from people. And then when they go to build their three-dimensional model, then they can incorporate some changes to what they're doing. So one of the things I kept saying to Kidsey was, you know, I want to see just like Dustin was saying, but in different words, I want to see the concept all the way through every decision you make. And so that idea of that circularity that you saw even in her concept image, I think comes through in these 3 floors.
I have a couple of comments that I didn't hear the beginning of what you presented because I had
yeah, go for it.
I had to take the dog out for a so I came in, yeah. So, and I know this is not a finished project yet, so it might be a good time to interject a few thoughts that I have. I think you've got some very interesting forms developing, and I commend you on that. However, I'm wondering, questioning, I guess, whether or not you've put enough investigation into the actual sequencing of spaces that the viewers would be experiencing as they move through. And I keep running into dead ends, I guess.
Yeah,
and
that was one thing I was kind of concerned about with this shape, because I feel like if you enter, you can either go this way or this way. It's never, you can't like loop back around. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm going to try my annotation skills here for a second.
Okay.
Annotate. Okay. Where's that draw? I want to just draw some, like I see in my head, I see, it's not very clear, but oops, some kind of a, I don't know, form in there. Now, granted, I have to pull it away from this wall a little bit, but what is this square room right here?
So that's the first floor. It's there's a gift shop, like a marketplace in that space.
Okay. Well, even better is what if that floated in the middle of everything and you actually walked around it.
Around it.
You know? And so what maybe that form becomes the edge of the stair. At some point, or it becomes a form that is repeated on each floor, or, you know, so you almost had a memory of how to move through space around this element. And the element is special on the ground floor because it's a gift shop, and it would be repeated on the second floor, even though my drawing is not showing it that way, but maybe on the second floor, it has a different purpose in mind, and on the third floor it does as well. But you would be, and I'm not sure that this is a great answer yet, but it's just where my mind's going right now, that that circulation would be enhanced by something that you circulated around, and it could have multiple applications, but you won't end up with dead ends as much.
Right. No, that makes a lot more sense. It helps with the concept too of that.
See, that's
circular space.
That's where you started.
That kind of is where I started. This one right here was what I kind of wanted to go with at first, where that middle section was here and then the exhibits around here. But the amount of space that I had with putting the elevator and the stairwell and everything else, it just didn't allow that to work right. Then you can see I tried a different shape here. And then that's when I was like, I don't think that this is going to work. So I ended up pretty much starting with those blocks again and just moving stuff around, and then got to this. So
yeah, I think you could add it back in.
Yeah.
I think you need to make it work. That's a really, in my opinion, that's a very important thing that Mary Beth is talking about, because I think too, if we see this thing vertically connecting all 3 floors, right, it creates as much more desirable thing to want to explore and investigate. Like, what is this connecting to? Where just looking at it in plan, it's like, okay, I want to go into this creepy emergency stairwell, and connect all three floors. It's not really that creepy, but there's not, it's not creating the sense of desire that almost any museum does, regardless of scale. It always suggests like you want to progress to the next level, whether it's up or down or horizontal. So I think introducing that element would aid with your accomplishment of that. And I think it's very, it's a museum. That's what you want to do, is for people to explore and be encouraged to by sparking their curiosity. So
yeah, and that was something that originally was tying all the floors, the idea of that central marketplace, tied back to your concept. So that's, it just got planned out and then you didn't revisit it and plan it back in, but you'll have time to do that. Another thing you need to remember is that we really don't like to look right into people's bathrooms.
Right. That was one thing I was like, I already know I'm going to get marked down on this when she grades it, but I'm like, I don't know how to put it any other way because I had tried like a million things and nothing looked good. So I'm like, I guess I just have to keep it like this for now. Yeah.
Good. You got great input.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for the feedback. That's kind of the main reason that I wanted to talk about what I did and how I got there and everything. So yes, hopefully I can improve it
when
off
I'm looking at your
feedback I got.
Yeah, well, looking at even your very first diagram, your the spices and the way that the spoons are arranged around it, in a way, I could even draw a lot of spatial forms from that go back to some central circle or ellipse or something, and things kind of generating off of it, like Beth suggested, a central market or something like that. That I think that's a
I didn't. She kind of got off track, and she can revisit it.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Thank you.
We've got Sophia up next.
Let's see if I can actually stop sharing. How do I get back here? Stop share. There we go. Okay.
All right, so I'll start with giving you a little bit of background. So I just signed up for this on Thursday, so I wasn't able to go in and take a picture of my final layout for my museum, but I do have my work in progress that I had showed Beth. Let me figure out how to share my screen here. Well, I'll start with my concept page. Okay, so here's my concept. I had the calendar in Aberdeenshire. I'm guessing that's how it said, Scotland. It's like thousands of years old, thousands of years old, and it's like a stone monument that is in the middle of a field in this location. And so I watch a bunch of videos on calendars and time, and I did a bunch of studying, and one of the things that I really got from it is that our year will always be inaccurate. And so I found this image that I thought brought a little humor into it and represented my concept statement. And so then also I said, throughout history, we as humans have tried to nail down time. We have done this through different calendars. Today, even our most precise calendars will always be off. There are far too many variables that can impact our calendars for it to be accurate. So I wanted to lean into that inaccuracy through the design of the interior and the exterior of this calendar museum. And let me pull up this. Can you guys see the next image, or is it still on the PowerPoint or the Word document?
It's still on the Word document.
Okay. Let me switch that. There we go. Okay. So this has been altered, but first I'll just bring you through the first three, and then I'll tell you how each were altered. But so this is my first floor. You'll see throughout that I stuck a little bit with the square design, but I have certain cutouts that are integrated. And so then this is my entrance, we have an area for storage, coat storage, and then this is my front desk. And I wanted the path to be like self-guided and easy to walk through all the way down to the next, how to get to the next floor. And I also wanted these display walls to be tilted to everything's all off kilter or not accurate. That goes back to my concept statement. And if I had my final, but not my final, my one that I turned in, these actually I changed to 1 foot by 4 foot movable partitions that would display the work. And I did it very similarly to this, except with this gift shop, I ended up moving it against this wall right here, and it added a little storage there so that you don't walk through the gift shop to prevent theft. So I ended up changing that. And I believe also for my first floor, I changed it so that the door would swing in. So then let's go to my second floor. How do I? You guys see the second floor, right? Yeah. Okay, so on the second floor, we enter through either the stairs or the elevator. And like I said, this has been changed slightly, but so we have the partitions again that are on angles that will show work. This I also changed so that I got rid of this partition and I added in a wall, and I ended up having more room here in my final, so I added a drinking fountain and a wall, so this door would open against a wall. And so right here is a theater area, so the flow would go this way, or you'd go this way to my snack bar. I'm getting ahead of myself. So the flow would go this way, and you could get snacks to watch a presentation on the astronomy behind calendars in this screening room right here. And this way, when you exit, there is a observation balcony. Since my museum is located in Aberdeenshire, Scotland, you can see like the monument of the first calendar from this balcony. And I put a lot of thought into this, but like there at night you can offer looking at the stars for the night. Okay, so that was my second floor. And then my third floor is a little bit of an exhibit area with my moving partitions that I had. And then there is also a event space that you can rent out. And I ended up changing this. I originally was going to do a bar here, but I changed it on my final to just be another observation deck for the first calendar that you can imagine. It's like over here if you imagine it on a map. And then I also have a storage area and another bathroom. So I'm sorry I don't have like the actual picture of my final everything. I wasn't able to get to WMU before today and take another picture, but that's basically my museum.
Sophia, you also switch your doors too.
Yes.
Onto the decks, yeah.
Yes, I switched those. I ended up only doing one door and it would open this way. And then for the other one, I switched this one to also be one door, and I believe it opened this way. Yeah, I did when I finally got to be in the studio last week, it was really nice to be in the studio and talk with a bunch of different people, my classmates and everything, and just make little tweaks to everything. Oh, another thing. Okay. So with my museum, there's these cutouts that you'll see. Like ended up making this one smaller, but I kept this one the same size, and then that balcony doesn't have a roof to it. It just goes straight up. And then this is another balcony. So if you can imagine like the isometric view, it's got like cutout squares, and I just think that like emphasizes my like inaccurate or off-kilter idea for the museum. I keep on thinking of stuff. I also ended up making my window areas into grids like on a calendar. So in the museum, there'll be areas where there's a window and then it's blank, and then there's a window and then it's blank, like grids on a calendar.
Yeah, I just have like a totally random question that might be out of sync from the requirements. So, I'm just gonna ask just for the sake of curiosity. Did you consider maybe how some of these walls could like be moved, like basically like, I don't know, a few different iterations of a singular floor plan, because that would really kind of capture this experience of time. Like, I'm just thinking how interesting it would be if like I entered a museum and as I progress up, the walls are changing. So by the time I went back down, it was like a completely different, floor plan configuration, which would really, I think, reinforce the experience of time, really like have this kind of temporal quality through dynamics. So I'm just curious, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's a super good idea. That actually reminds me of in our design history of the built environment, Kim recently had a lecture, and I don't know what building it was, but as time goes on, it like moves up. What was that called?
That was the Milwaukee Museum.
Oh, sure, yeah, with the, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That would be a great example. You started to do that. You were starting to think it, and I was hoping you would, because with these moving walls, remember? So that's your baby step to that direction, Sophia.
Yeah, I think that some of this place you're at with the floor plan right now, the angled walls seem sort of the meaning for that. I don't really understand that, why they're angled, and if it's rooted in your concept of how you are envisioning communicating this idea of time, which represented by calendars. And what Dustin suggested might give you more of an opportunity to knit that in a little bit better. Right now, it doesn't seem, it seems as if you really grasped a spatial derivative of the idea of a museum about calendars. So I think I would move away from the fixed angled walls unless you could make it become more meaningful, and maybe by looking at it as an evolution, that could help you to drive that message across.
Mary Beth, maybe you missed it, but she said that she had already started to do that. In her one that she submitted, they were no longer fixed.
Yeah, they were like on, they were movable. They were on wheels.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because it just doesn't feel like enough to really make the representation of calendars somehow. And they're awfully, they seem small to me too, in terms of, and I mean, I think they work within the space you're given, but maybe you could, in your next go around, think about, I don't know, that they become much more guiding in their positioning or something. I don't know. I always look at museums and sequencing is connected, that it has to, you want people to follow some sort of a sequence, and that transition from floor to floor is especially important, and then within each floor from area to area. And it could be that if you open up your space a little bit more, or spaces a little bit more, you might have an opportunity to create those angled, floating, movable objects to enhance the particular exhibit that you're trying to have flexibility for. So that's a lot of studying yet to do, but I think you have the potential to get there.
Yeah. And I was just gonna, whenever you have anything that's movable, like unfortunately I feel like you've always got to show those different floor plans of showing the different configurations, because it's the only way it's really grasped. And I mean, that comes to something as basic as an event space that is planned for 3 or 4 different furniture configurations. Like the way it's really clearly communicated is by having those plans with those different configurations. So as you explore this idea of movement more, I would just kind of acknowledge that I think it's going to require that level of sort of graphic and visual communication, because just kind of labeling a movable wall, it doesn't carry the same essence. So
yeah, Sophia, have you looked into the Ritfield Schroeder house?
I have not, no.
It is a house that was designed for a single mom, but it was the first in like the modern architecture era that considered mobile, like modernist walls, because of it was a smaller house and the kids' activities changed all the time. And so she collaborated with the architect to make the walls move throughout time based on their scheduling.
Oh, okay.
So it could be interesting, even if it's just for aesthetics, to look at that and see how there's a lot of reviews about it and commentary. So you're kind of contributing to that area of discourse.
That's like a sort of another reason why I like this assignment, is because we get to take a break. It starts at the beginning of the semester, and we get to take this long break in between, and we get to research all new things and come up with all new ideas about it. And I'm excited to figure new stuff out about it.
I had another question. So you mentioned the windows, the patterning of the glazing representing the calendar. Was that just like a generic representation of the calendar grid, or was it specific to the type of calendar?
So just for now, it's specific to just like the grid of a calendar. Okay. I haven't thought into that too much, but like on my, not these, because I have different, like I said, I have a different one at school, but they're like 2x2 sections of windows and then blank spots to represent a grid.
Yeah, her mullion patterning, that's your framing pattern is becoming the calendar grid, is what she said to me. So I think when she starts to build a model, she'll be able to do some of those wall things. You know, if she keeps it truly like a study model, she'll be able to do some of those iterations of the walls in those models, since it's such a simple model.
Yeah, I mean, one aspect to really subtly play with the aspect of time, but have a really big experiential impact would be sun and shadows. So thinking about what, you know, how is the sun or the light coming in those windows, and what is the shadow that it's having on the floor? And how does that, you know, change throughout time? So somebody coming in at a different time than last time might have slightly different experience, because, you know, the shadows have a big architectural impact within themselves.
I think that's a great beginning to start to think about how does the space become a conveyor of the essence of calendars. It's about day to night, night to day, and one day to another day to another day, and that fits into a datum of time that could really be the anchor for the project. And that would, it's like the interior could become a sundial, basically.
Yeah, those are good ideas. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and that pivoting wall can pivot, you know, the wall could be something that these moving walls could be pivoted throughout the day. So I think of them, instead of mobile walls, more pivoting walls.
Yeah.
Then anyway, so you have the idea in the final. These were her pre-final, and I shouldn't say final. The at least presented schematics. that are out in the hallway have a little more development that I think illustrate that better. But what's fun for me is they do not get to choose their topic. They're given the museum type, and I purposely do that because in reality, project is, a designer doesn't often get to select the project they're doing. They're given the project. And so I really like how, to see how different students can approach. They can embrace the idea that they were given this topic, or I do get a few students who said, I have no interest in designing a museum for this thing. And I have to somehow get them to think differently and turn that around.
Well, nice work, Sophia.
Thank you.
We've got one more, Olivia. Speaking of long-lasting projects throughout the semester.
Yep. Final thesis. Where to start? Dustin is actually one of my mentors, and he's been super helpful. We had a meeting a while back to kind of go over finalizing an idea. Like, basically the assignment is to pick a concept or like a genre that goes against the status quo. So I chose higher education, and I'm going against the status quo because I'm kind of creating a new environment, and it is focused around neurodiversity and inclusion. I will share my screen. So can you guys see my screen? I'll share. Let's see. Sorry, I have like one of these little pop-up ads, and it wants me to restart my computer. No, you are not. Okay. There we go. So, I used Adobe Illustrator. Sorry, I'm used to using WebEx a lot more. So I kind of made it a double spread. So these are 30 by 44 posters. So it's really hard to kind of capture the feeling of it right now. But if we look at them not side by side, so I kind of talk about neurodiversity, which is a concept that was created by Judy Singer. She was actually an individual who had autism. And basically it is an umbrella term for variations of human cognition. So it is a way that celebrates the differences in individuals that think and learn differently. So some common conditions are ADHD, autism, dyslexia, also Tourette syndrome, and dyscalculia are a few others, but I'm going to focus on 3 main conditions. I also decided to highlight inclusive design because it goes hand in hand with higher education. If we look at neurodiversity, I created a bunch of infographics. The assignment was to make infographics and kind of analyze case studies for the posters. So I made a bubble diagram highlighting the different conditions with neurodiversity and kind of where they overlap, because they all are very different. So we have dyscalculia. Some very unique advantages are innovative thinking. Dyslexia, they're very visual thinkers and very creative. ADHD, creativity, the ability to hyperfocus, and a increase in energy and passion for everything they do. With Tourette syndrome, they have very excellent observational skills, very good at controlling their thinking, and also very creative individuals. And then I kind of highlight inclusive and mental health. And then if we go into this is dyspraxia, I'm not going to evaluate all of them because it's such a broad bracket. And to say something's inclusive, it would be very hard with the scope of the project to really go in and make sure all those elements are highlighted. these are some infographics I created. 1 in every 59 people are actually diagnosed with autism. That is 1.69% of the world. And actually 5 to 10% of the population has dyslexia. There is a bunch of studies that show there are many workplace advantages when it comes to hiring neurodiverse employers or employees. So if we look at employment, if we evaluate autism, 1% of the population is autistic. 80% of those people are seeking work, but 79% remain unemployed. Why is that? That is because a lot of companies are trying to incorporate inclusive design in these types of programs, but they don't really understand the specific elements. So I go into the awareness that is missing from these companies. So if we look at this, I created this diagram as well. So a little over 65% of employees are unsure how to connect these employees that are at risk for having disabilities with extra help. A little over 45% have little knowledge of how to implement reasonable accommodations. And a little under 40% are confident in how their company approaches the disability accommodations. So a lot of employers are looking to hire these unique employees, but the issue is if they aren't going through education and finishing college, how are they going to be connected to the workplace? So with my whole thesis topic, if we can help cater to the varying learning abilities, that will and then benefit the workforce. And I was inspired by this topic off of a video that Bernie showed us last year. And I wanted to show you guys, it's only a couple minutes. It really captures the feeling and the energy that I would like to share.
Casa Carlota is a professional design company. Our designers are selected for their creative specialties.
Oops.
Me llamo Juan. Beatles, run it on. A mí me gusta trabajar. A veces pinto, a veces hago letras. We all live in the yellow submarine, yellow submarine, yellow submarine. Yo no sé qué es autismo. Algunas veces gentes me entienden y otras no. Na, 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 na. Na, 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 na. Turnem A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. En toda la comunicación en el mundo, lo que acaba diferenciando son los detalles. Y ellos tienen detalles que son todos verdad porque son de ellos. No copian nunca. Joan, por ejemplo, como tipógrafo, cuando hace una tipografía no le podéis influir. Esa tipografía de Joan es suya y solo suya. Mucha gente interpreta que en la Casa de Carlota somos muy majos porque dejamos trabajar a chicos con síndrome de Down y autismo, pero yo no me siento muy majo. Yo me siento un poco un cabrón, un listo, porque ellos tienen una originalidad que hasta ahora el sector, la comunicación, no había utilizado. ¿Quién te gusta, Kim? ¿Al dibujos? Gracias.
Tenemos un trabajo hoy, os explico. Hay un briefing muy concreto de un campeonato de tenis. Tenemos que hacer un decorado dentro del campeonato, pero más surreal. La cabeza puede hacer una pelota de tenis, por ejemplo.
ser un proyecto social y todo el mundo está remunerado y cobra lo que se considera lógico en el mercado profesional. Yo creo que hay mucha gente que lo que tiene es miedo a equivocarse, pero la creatividad buena ha de estar coqueteando con el riesgo. Así es como veo el futuro de esta industria. Diseño original, gente original.
Okay. So that is something, oops. Okay, so hopefully that played how you guys saw it on my end, but that was basically kind of the energy and inspiration behind what I wanted to address throughout this project. So when addressing the higher education status quo, there is two different approaches. So it began with the medical model, and now we are practice more of a social model when it comes to teaching individuals with learning disabilities. So with the medical model, it was based solely on diagnosing, separating individuals and putting them in their own environment to help address their needs. It was basically, they viewed the individual as seeing something that was wrong with them. The social model is more about inclusion, and it helps identify their strengths and includes a lot of solutions and special programs to help them embrace their unique advantages. It's very diverse, and it includes society as a whole. So that leads us to inclusive design. When evaluating the statistics behind students with ADHD, dyslexia, and autism, the dropout rate is super high. For individuals with ADHD, 25% of them normally drop out of college, 35% of individuals with dyslexia drop out, and 80% of individuals drop out of college just because their needs are not being met in the traditional model of education. So that's only a 5% graduation rate with ADHD, 34% with dyslexia, and 7% with autism. So the student's main role with how they view they can be successful is how do they identify these barriers that are not helping meet their needs, and how can they transition from high school to college, and then how it feeling their need if they should disclose their disability to professors. So the faculty role starts with how the professors address and celebrate disability and their need for additional training and how they implement universal design. And then this I thought was really interesting. 41% of studies showed the graduation rate of students with a disability in comparison to a 59% rate of the general population. So we had to propose two buildings with our summer packet, and I decided to select Rood Hall. For the programming side of it, it is located in a location, it has 4 floors. It is in a location that is not central, but it's accessible. There's plenty of parking. It currently is used for many classrooms, laboratories, and art and science center. So it has programming for some of the programs that I want to use. It was dedicated to Dr. Paul Rood, who was a member of the physics department. So it used to be used for that. And when I address my programming, it is mainly focused on collaboration, inclusion, and celebrating diversity. So I want to, with this center, connect students to local networks of support in the community. I want to provide on-campus student services, and I want to create an educational curriculum that reinforces cultural awareness and knowledge of issues related to social injustice. when looking at the elements, because there's so many considerations that are research-based for this building, but if we just take a look at some of the elements like adjustable lighting and different tactile elements, modular furniture to create multiple different layouts and variations, because again, the user has a wide variety of needs. Autism is a spectrum, so not every individual is alike. When we consider daylighting and natural light, those are huge factors that drastically improve the learning experience for these individuals. Having the ability to control acoustics. Some of these individuals, especially with autism, require noise canceling headphones. So if they become overwhelmed, they can eliminate all sound if they have a sensory overload. And the spatial planning often celebrates open plan and central workstation. So it encourages social interaction and awareness. And a lot of the circulation celebrates curved forms and elements, because especially with autism, having sharp, rigid corners increases anxiety, and allowing curved forms allows them to see like what is around the corner. So that is another important tool. And some of the programming will include immersive learning, behavior analysis, and therapies, and it will help celebrate self-efficacy and resilience. If I look at my binder that I created just in the summer, it was a lot of research, mainly just to help us form a concept, but it's going to be basically a student success center. And I was inspired with neurodiversity, inclusion, and also the environment. So when looking at sustainability and how I can repurpose and reuse elements. We had to do a lot of book activities, but one that I really enjoyed was we had to pick a bunch of different photos and kind of collage them and then delete some. They were just random. And mine were all kind of centralized around this. It represents like the human body. And I created this quote, human life cannot exist without the natural environment. It's what feeds our mind, fills our bodies, and inspires our soul. So that kind of explains my relationship to the environment and how I want to use that as a design tool. Again, these were some more activities. We had to do a bunch of research because there's a lot of research that goes around with this topic, but we did some beginning programming just to kind of evaluate what different approaches to higher education I want to address. I want this to be a center that addresses, it kind of combines DSS accommodations. It has tutoring, student success services. It will have a lab, kind of how you saw in the video, where students that are neurodiverse can help find their one skill that they're really proficient in, which later will help them find a job. And then this is kind of some facts. I'm showing this so you can get a visual of like the building. The outdoor in the window, outdoor area really caught my attention, as well as the outside facade. I really saw a lot of potential with this building. It kind of just shows some information about the building. But I wanted to show, this is the current state of the classrooms. This is just off the first floor. There are going to have to be a lot of changes with research on how I have to address the design and the programming, because again, like I mentioned, lighting and the furniture and acoustics, like this type of lighting would be way too harsh for an individual that can potentially have sensory overload. This type of seating would not necessarily help a person with learning disabilities learn. They might need more of an individual-based approach. Definitely a lecture hall is something that is going to not probably be ideal for this type of facility I'm going to design. And if we look at the brick, I know acoustically and different elements to help control sound and the visual connections within a space are going to be really important as well. So those are just some main pictures of kind of the site. This was my other idea for a building, but I decided after meeting with Dustin that this is just a really large scale and it's a newer building, that Rood Hall would be a more ideal location with what the programming already has existing. Because again, addressing sustainability and repurposing is not only good for the environment, but it's important to do so as a designer as well. I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I didn't really know where to kind of start. Look at my notes. Basically, I was inspired to do this topic because I am a neurodiverse student and I have experience using DSS and setting up accommodations, and there is just a huge disconnect between all the resources, and I think having them in one location would benefit not only like neurodiverse students but everyone as well. The office right now for DSS, it's not really celebrated. It is almost embarrassing to go in and have just like, it's kind of open and it's not very private, and I feel like a lot of students are turned away from that. They don't necessarily want to disclose if they have a disability. So if it's just more inclusive and universally designed, it would benefit like everybody. So yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So comparing what you're finding in terms of need, if it's based on what you see in DSS, maybe I missed it, but was everything that you were referencing based on an analysis of what DSS offers? And how does that compare?
So right now I'm writing a 25-page research paper about like all the research. So I know now more than when I did create this poster. No, it's not all based on DSS. It's kind of a study of the higher education as a whole and addressing, kind of looking at the research of things that were successful and things that were not successful and how I can improve the learning setting and taking tools from, because it's very different with K through 12 education, the education system. Students with disabilities get like an IEP and they can have a 504 plan. So they have a lot more guidance with having a mentor. And then when they get to college, there's a big gap. They're kind of just on their own. The only access they have is the disability center. So kind of, yeah.
So that's like the center point to your investigation, even though it's a building specific to neurodiverse learning. It's also a services center for people with learning disabilities.
So it will have like
both of them.
And like kind of everything that we offer on campus as a whole, but like tailored to people with disabilities, just so it's more accessible and easy to access.
So it's not really going to be a place where you have classrooms, right? I'm trying to wrap my head around how this is going to work.
So basically, when I was talking with Dustin, it's kind of the whole status quo idea. It's going against that because I'm creating a new project type. So it's not necessarily just education. It has some academic learning class, some smaller scale classrooms. It will have tutoring and support. It will have DSS. It will have maybe some counseling and psychology services where it might have like ABA therapy and cognitive therapy ways where it will have services to improve. But it's really difficult because it's such a broad umbrella of disabilities and they all have different needs. So kind of, I'm in the process right now of finding similarities on how I can figure out and tailor the programming to say I'm inclusive for ADHD, and like the three main ones I'm focusing on, because it's such a broad umbrella to say it's inclusive for everyone. It's just, I wouldn't have the time and resources to address like every single need.
Well, you might be able to frame it in that it does do all of that, but you're going to only focus, you know, whatever the center is broader than what you're going to investigate. And that makes more sense because, I mean, I know you're not going to have the time or the ability to really zero in on each one of them, but make sure you keep the context of it as all of them.
Yeah, that's the end goal.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I don't think it's what you meant, but it comes across this way, that you've already formulated some preconceived ideas about a solution. And I don't know that you know that yet. Like you did mention that because of the diversity, that there's really not one solution for everything.
Yeah.
But some of the things you were talking about was open spaces, and even though you mentioned that that's not suitable for everybody, I just don't want you to fall into the trap of thinking that you can just kind of make a bunch of open spaces and that'll be flexible, which that could be helpful, that they might be flexible, but it really, I don't know, I feel like you want to kind of zero in on each one of those areas and design spaces that might work for each of those different areas.
Yeah.
And not lump them all together into the idea that they can be flexible and adaptable to each individual scenario, because that might be too complicated and you'll end up with nothing, you know?
Yeah. And that's what I don't want to do. And we're still in the very, very beginning phase with research. So I'm still researching. And even today, before this, I was still finding out more and more information and just case studies and what has been successful and what hasn't. And because some schools have specific programs that offer support for these types of students. So reading and comparing like what I found to them has been successful too, but I can't say I have it narrowed down like the programming yet, because we're not a part of the project yet. But
well, and that's understandable because you're at the very beginning of it all. Now the building you're choosing, just a word of caution. I know it's kind of hard to know how you're going to use that building, but remember, you're reinventing that building. So you picked it for some reasons, and but I don't want to see you just reallocate names of spaces.
Oh yeah, no.
You know, and that would be like the worst thing you could do, because you're supposed to be reimagining what would work. And sometimes when you choose an educational facility building for another educational facility building, you end up falling into the trap of the current plan that you can't deviate from it for whatever reason. And it limits your ability to come up with a solution that busts that status quo, which so don't fall into the trap of the layout of the building and just renaming it or just making minor finish modifications and stuff like that. So
that I'm definitely going to. I think we have to maybe keep the exterior, he said, because I was asking him if we had to develop all, because it has 3 floors, the basement's the 4th, but it has 3 floors. I was like, do we have to develop every single floor? And he hasn't really presented the next assignment. This was package 2. Package 3 is our research paper. So package 4, we start getting into more of the site analysis and like the programming. So I'll be able to.
I think and I don't think it'll be too different in the way that he's teaching it, but what I tend to do in that class is give you, if you have a building that's bigger than what your needs are, like at this point, you may not really know that yet, but think of it as the overall building is dedicated to the purposes of that type of education, and that you master plan the entire building, but you only develop in more detail the areas that you're talking about. So it wouldn't be helpful for the overall idea of your building to just section off floors and say, well, I'm not dealing with that. You should at least be able to say it's for blah, blah, blah. But for the purposes of this project, we're not developing it fully.
Yeah.
So that's yet to come.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think the other thing that I'm still kind of, I don't know, maybe it'll come to me as you develop it, but this immersive learning, the idea of what is immersive learning,
Mhm.
maybe you need to amplify that in a clearer way. And if you have to do it by way of examples as they pertain to each type of
Mhm.
learning disability, that might be a way to present it so that then you see the commonalities or the differences.
Yeah, that's kind of what I am doing in my research paper, addressing it kind of as a whole and then tailoring down specifically into the 3 that I'm evaluating. There are overlaps in some of the effective strategies for like spatial programming and elements I mentioned before, but there are differences. So I haven't decided if I want to, this is down the road with the programming, have specific rooms that, or programming that has an approach to the specific disability, or if I want to make them, because it's all about inclusion and like the social model isn't about separating individuals. So I don't know if I want to necessarily label and put a specific label to the room or like the approach. So I don't know.
Well, I don't know that you need to make that decision right now, but that leads to my next comment. Have you sought out any people as mentors that you could use to help you understand the kind of education that, from somebody who's maybe not at the college level, but even at the high school level, because that would be what precedes them. And what can you learn from that to help you? But I think you need a mentor that's kind of more immersed in that kind of education. And have you found anybody or interviewed anybody?
Yes, Beth's friend, Dr. Susan, is, she specializes in, she has her doctorate in psychology and master, I think it's master's in play therapy. So I am in the process.
Good.
What did you say?
She basically counsels these types of people. So, and she's also written a number of papers, Olivia.
Okay.
And I've had a little bit of a conversation. She's with her after she's spoken with you. She's a bit concerned and she really wants you to think about inclusion.
Yeah.
Right now, you're not really addressing inclusion.
Okay.
Of these people, of these different learning abilities. Because you're really excluding them into their own building. And so that was very worrisome to her. So my idea is that you might have a meeting between Dustin, she, and you.
Okay.
Either after you've done your research and after they've had a chance to read it, or maybe before, I don't know. But that is the only thing she's mentioned to me is it gets jumbled, that word, you bring back this word inclusion, but then your approach to the building is not inclusive.
Yeah, I guess my approach, I wasn't necessarily trying to exclude, it was more of making it specifically tailored, like having a more universal approach, because ADA and what's the other one? They address more of like the physical disabilities, but there isn't really a like student success center that celebrates like universal design for learning. That, unless I'm just like missing that.
I mean, I think Beth is bringing up a very valid point, and we can talk through that. I mean, it's a very interesting scenario because you're like empowering these individuals by providing them probably the best facility that's ever been designed, for these individuals that are just different. I mean, we've talked about that. They're just on a spectrum, right? The title of the chapter. But at the same time, it also turns into, well, these people belong over here and everyone else belongs over here. And so I think we just need to maybe explore that of how do we kind of encourage everyone to potentially be involved with the facility so it doesn't feel so segregated. But I mean, that's more into design strategy as well. I think it's good to kind of flag it, as something to definitely consider. There was we have this ongoing dialogue. I love being part of this project because I think it's just really rich and, sort of good things. But there is one thing I just wanted to make a comment about. It's kind of smallish, but I don't want you to carry it forward. If you go to your thesis posters and you had kind of like those pie diagrams.
Let me see. It keeps going to. Did you want me to look at them like side by side?
Yeah, actually, zoom into that one right there under neurodiversity. And just scroll down.
Is it this one?
Perfect. Yeah. That works. Yep. So I just want to. It's like I said, it's kind of a small thing, but well, hang on. No, go back over. Where were we going? We were right where I wanted.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's to
right
the
there?
yeah. No. It was like these circular graphs.
Oh.
Yeah, they're right. Yeah, just don't. Yeah, it's stop.
Okay.
You're perfect. Don't move. Don't. Yeah,
Okay.
it's easy. So this type case that you selected, at that small of scale, it's not very legible, which would be an issue regardless, but it's odd to see words like dyslexia and then in a type that's also very hostile for visual accessibility. So I would definitely consider that in your selection of types and how are they working at smaller scales for increased legibility, because it's counterintuitive to the subject matter you're undertaking. Like I said, kind of a smallest thing, nothing to undermine other like amazing work that's happening, just something to nip in the bud to not carry forward. So,
no, yeah,
that's all I'm going to say, because we're going to talk at great length throughout the semester about this project.
Just, I'd like to add to that. It's a very nitpicky thing. So I was over focused on that. If you go up the little bit, Olivia, on your graph, right?
Oh, the graph.
You've got. You were back to where you were, right there. That circle, that donut.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, you've got a smaller pie representing 35% and a bigger little piece representing 25%. And it, that I kept thinking about that instead of listening or looking at your poster. So stuff like that. And then the contrast is not enough for me.
Okay.
The contrast between, so be very careful when you do your posters that your copy doesn't get too small and that you're truly reaching all of your audience.
Yeah.
When there's not enough contrast for the aging eye, it's a problem. Because you want to reach all peoples with your great information. So and your great passion. You always have phenomenal passion, and I think you happen to be very lucky because Dr. Susan just retired, so she has a little bit more time on her hands than she usually does. And she's also written a lot of papers. In fact, she was kind enough to proof my thesis for my master's degree. So, make sure, I think a meeting with Dustin and with she and with you before you get too far down maybe a side path so you get a good grounded focus from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. And I don't plan on necessarily doing for like my final poster, a color palette that's like monochromatic like this. But one thing that inspired me to do like for the graphic representation for this palette was pink is actually a preferred color for that studies have shown a lot of these users prefer it Where was my note specifically? I think it's right. It basically gives them a secure and loving environment that doesn't create a lot of tension. So I kind of just, that was what I was inspired off of for this color palette, and having a color palette that has more pastels has been found to be effective. But yeah, that's just kind of where I was inspired for this poster. There's a lot of color psychology behind it all, so.
I don't have a problem with the palette, just contrast.
Okay, so like with the words, having these maybe black.
You can keep the color the same, it's just they're too pale.
Okay.
So I have a question. The video you showed us,
yeah,
is that also going to be an important part of your research package, visually and research wise, or were you just showing that to us to introduce us to why you are motivated for this?
Both. I would say that was something that he showed it to us when we were doing our IDEC project last year for creating a center with individuals that had varying cognitive disabilities and autism specifically. So that was something, when I researched in depth, I was really inspired by and kind of stuck with me. And that video kind of reinforced that. And I think it's an interesting concept that a lot of companies are starting to think about and discuss, but there is still like a gap where I feel like they could be more successful. And addressing, I feel like, with higher education, learning and keeping these individuals in school, and helping them really find their strengths will relate to like the workplace and those advantages. So I definitely want, there are a few other ones that when I was researching, that companies have similar approaches. A lot of them are art-based. But yes, I definitely plan on expanding off of that.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the video. The graphics that they create are
They're
amazing.
really cool.
And I would love to see, I don't know, maybe more of that energy or those colors translate into some of your representation. If that video is something that you really are, wanting to bring into this a little bit more.
Okay, that's a really good thought.
Tie it together. If
Okay.
I have another comment that is, I think we tend to always revert to the art answer to people with different learning abilities or styles. And I think that's kind of common, in that art therapy would be a great outlet or a great way to try to unlock some understanding for people that are of different spectrums.
Yeah.
But there's also people that are like math geniuses and other areas that where they can exist in society because of their math ability, like their ability to compute in their head, and that just is off the charts for what normal people can do. And so in a way, I just hope you don't end up following the usual trajectory that is art's the answer, because it may not be for everybody, but it's obviously something that would be inclusive for therapy at many levels. But I just wonder about those that are not necessarily artistic, but have great mathematical skills, or I don't know. I'm only thinking of that because I think that one movie, whatever it was, I can't even think of the name of it anymore, but
Rain Man.
Yeah. That's the one.
I don't know.
So
sorry, I interrupted.
That's all right. I'm done.
I might have not touched on this, but expanding off of that comment, some of these individuals are really gifted with working in artificial intelligence, automation, cybersecurity, data management. So I was thinking of having kind of in this student success center, let's say, not necessarily the name, but having career advising and like a skill lab, something where they could like experiment and find like their unique skill. Because a lot of, like that video showed, a lot of them are really, really successful at one thing. They might not be, what's the word? Just like maybe not day-to-day life, they might have varying disabilities, but they excel extremely with this one talent. So finding that one thing they're really good at and having like career advising that would help match them maybe to some type of job locally, I think would help that disconnect too. Because I don't know, that's kind of an idea.
Yeah, reading this paragraph with AI and automation, cybersecurity, it sounds like things that there could be some really great opportunities in the future in like a job market that don't even exist yet.
Yeah.
To start preparing these individuals for, in the way that we would any industry, we kind of think ahead and then prepare them. So this could be really cool to, you know, take on thinking about what is the future job market looking like and how can they best contribute their skills.
Yeah.
Because they have skills beyond what most of us do.
Yeah.
And so that's really interesting. I didn't know that with cybersecurity and data management and everything.
Yeah. There was one study that I found where I believe it was Asperger's. They're very good with the technical, like artificial intelligence and data management. But I think it was like 80% of them, they find employment, but they end up having to quit just because their basic needs with like the office aren't being met. So that's kind of like my whole thing, what I wanted to address too, like increasing awareness for like inclusive design and kind of like targeting those elements that are really simple and efficient and effective and kind of like sharing that knowledge too.
Right.
Yeah.
Great.
One more random question from me. It kind of stood out that you mentioned you did all this in Adobe Illustrator. How do you use Adobe Illustrator prior to taking Design Communication 3?
No.
Nice. Okay. I mentioned this mainly too because Mary Beth's here, and so these are some of the results that are transpiring to thesis from the Design Communication 3 course that was introduced. So I want to make sure I was observing that correctly, which is awesome. I mean, there was a lot of discussion around the planning of that course and what it should stand for and everything else. So I think it's meeting those
Yeah,
goals.
I really liked that course.
Well, I mean, you worked incredibly hard in that course too. So yeah,
I think it shows for sure, and it's composed in an organized fashion, and I think the contrast could be worked on a little bit, but I think you have good stuff now. All that said, what we're looking at right now, I guess I should do the old schedule or get the what's that thing called, viewing option. Where is it? Yeah, find that thing where I can make a circle around something.
Annotation, view options and annotate.
I can't see that anymore.
I think I know what you're going to point out.
You know what I'm going to point out, right? There's so spelling error. Well, that too. Shouldn't this all add up to 100, 79, 80, and 1?
Well, I wanted to include some pie charts, but I'm not very good in the math department. So I was trying to, they have a lot of tools in Microsoft, like Word, where it can create the pie charts, but it wasn't like graphically how, like inputting my information, it was kind of hard. But basically 1%, this is supposed to represent like the 1%, and this is the whole population. So then the 80% are seeking work. And then the 79%, maybe I said that backwards. Yeah, no, this is like 79% of them that are not employed. Does that make sense? Did I say that backwards?
Yeah, it makes sense when you explain it, but how it's depicted.
It could be simpler. Or a
that,
sentence.
or maybe
Okay.
maybe just putting the numbers by the actual colors so we understand.
Okay, like here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 79% and 80% are so close.
Yeah.
Can they be combined just to say 80% are seeking work and also are unemployed, or?
Yeah. No, I could do that.
I know that, like, is pushing it a little bit, but.
But doesn't that leave 20% left over?
Right, it does. Yeah.
No, I took the
is that out of the autistic population, 80% are seeking work, 20% are not. Out of that 80%, 1% get a job.
Okay. So
really the pie graph just wasn't the best choice. Something like a bar graph.
Yeah.
Well, not already. I'm even thinking if you just have little icons of people, right? And like if like every one person represented 10 people, and then like so the ones that are a job are like gray, and the one that is a blue or something, and that really, emphasizes the contrastual difference, or it really emphasizes the point you're trying to make. So,
yeah. No, that definitely would be more effective.
Sure,
and then you got to fix the spelling error on employment. There's no E.
Oh yeah.
And so, and there might be more but that should be something you take a closer look at. It's so easy to do, to make the mistake, and then it doesn't bode well especially when you put this up for other professionals to look at. You
want it to be right.
They jump right out at you.
Illustrator has spell check too.
Yeah, I need to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, it's under edit, and then you can turn on dynamic spell checking. So like as you type, it will give you a little squiggly line as Word does. I mean, I rely on it pretty heavily because my spelling is just horrendous.
Yeah, mine's bad. No, but overall, my whole inspiration behind like the kind of making it a spread, because it's very difficult to have the PDF go into a spread, because you do that in InDesign, not Illustrator. So then I had to take this and put it to InDesign just to put it into a spread. But I was kind of inspired off of like the whole approach to education, where the social model is all about like immersing all the individuals together. So kind of having the pages blend or like kind of bleed together versus having them separate. That's kind of like what my idea was behind like the format of it. I don't know. Could be a stretch, but.
I mean, it's nice. I mean, I think just stand alone, I'm like, okay, this looks, pretty good and visually pleasing, and I don't know, these things are picking on it just because we're like hyper tuned like on details. It's you can't help it. It's you do this for so many years and you can't help but drill into details. So.
Well, and isn't there that saying, like, after you present your work, if you're getting critique about really small, like very specific things like that door swing, this thickness of the wall, that's actually really good, because the larger, like really important aspects are like, they're not concerned about those.
Yeah, and I used to always talk about that after presentations. Like, if the only thing anybody ever mentioned was a door swing, we're fine.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this forum is not really set up to be a critique either, right? No. It's like work in progress. So we're just trying to participate in the progression that's being made. Is how I'm viewing it, and all of that. So, but
yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Well, thank you for participating. I know you're so busy, and everybody is so busy right now, and this was a big chunk out of everybody's day, but I hope it was helpful.
I don't know if there's any freshmen left. I was gonna talk really quick about IDSO because we want more freshmen to join. I don't know if they're still in
It's
here.
being recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, it is here pitched and uploaded. I don't know.
Well, we shared this at our first meeting. Kind of just an overview about IDSO. We're a registered RSO. We are made up by a student board that is elected, and basically we're a platform where students can share their opinions, ideas, connect, collaborate. $10 dues. and why you'd want to join. Basically, just to be a part of something bigger, share stories, just connect. It can be really stressful being in the studio. I know not so much right now because of COVID and online learning, but I think it's just helpful to have that out of class discussion. And then IIDA is different from IDSO. It's an international association of designers. Basically, it connects you to individuals in the industry, and this is a little more expensive, but it has a ton of benefits where you can take part of a mentorship where they match you to a professional in the industry. There's just a lot more. It builds off of kind of IDSO, where I just became a member of IDIA last year. You can join it when you're a freshman, but I think it is almost more beneficial when you have a little more experience under your belt. But it can never hurt to get a kickstart. That kind of explains why you might want to join more. And then we kind of introduce our board members, since we're not really in the hallway. Bumping into everyone kind of helps to see face to face. I don't know if you can see like your guys' like little heads that I keep moving. But Mickey is the president, and we all shared a quote about design or something that inspired us with design. I thought hers was funny. The door handle is the handshake of the building. I'm the senior vice president. Study nature, love nature, stay close to nature. It will never fail you. Frank Lloyd Wright. I'm really passionate about sustainability and like to incorporate that into my projects. Chloe is the junior vice president. Great things are done by a series of small things brought together. And then Kedzie, who also participated today, she shared, as designers, we have the ability to impact and improve the lives of people who interact with the spaces we create. Kendall is the community rep. Choose your battles carefully. Sometimes it's easier to let things go. Allison is also a community rep. We have 2 this year. Design is where science and art break even. And then Emily and Anthony, I hope I said his name right, are both the fundraising reps. I think I saw him also attending this. An empty room is a story waiting to happen, and you're the author. And then AJ said, constantly, consistently, continually you. I know he was really passionate about that quote. And then some other board members, we have Jenna. She is the secretary. My favorite aspect of interior design is the relationship with psychology. Jen and Nicole and Denise, they're all 3 IIDA reps. So they are very knowledgeable about IIDA, and they help host events through IDSO, where we do a popcorn drive, which is super easy to take part of. You sell popcorn to all your friends and family, and a lot of times people raise enough money where it actually covers the cost of the IIDA price. Where did I leave off? Denise, design is about representing your ideas literally. It's more than just color and style, but about the atmosphere and the function of the future. That was a quote by herself. And then Beth is our IDSO advisor. And that is kind of what her role, team formation, collaboration, and creativity with the design program. And then we did do an activity where we did like a virtual scavenger hunt. Okay, I don't know if anyone wants, this is Mickey's email, and we also have an IDSO Instagram that is going to be, we're in the process of updating everything. We're going to do a meet the board, so you'd see all those images again. It's a very helpful tool to connect, and we post about a lot of the events that we take part in. And our next meeting, stop the share, is going to be October 18th at 6 p.m. We were trying to think of fun activities we can do virtually, so we are going to purchase little mini pumpkins and leave them in the studios or maybe the library, so you guys will have like at least a week, maybe 2, to pick up the supplies with like the paint and the bag of popcorn, and we're gonna all tune in virtually and watch like a Halloween movie and paint our pumpkins. So that will be something that is kind of interactive and fun. And we also are looking for another freshman rep. We hold elections, so you can email Mickey, and we would elect you guys into this position. Yeah, so you just kind of share about the upcoming events with your class as a freshman rep. Super easy. It's a great way to get involved and kind of make those connections with some of the older members. And yeah, that's it.
When do the elections take place?
They're going to be virtually. Mickey, I asked her if there was anything specifically she wanted me to mention, but I think we have 2 people that are interested. So we just wanted a few more to kind of get some more feedback out there. They're going to take place virtually. We're hoping to get our website up and running more efficiently, where we can maybe do the ballot there. But we have like our junior rep and our sophomore rep, I believe it's Kedzie. She will be sending out emails to like her classmates, and then the junior does that. So just to keep an eye out for those emails, and always don't hesitate to reach out.
They just received the poster invitation for the next meeting, and then the link with the survey.
Yeah, we definitely need everyone to do those, so when we buy the pumpkins, we don't buy too little or too many.
And then Mickey sent like a narrated PowerPoint
okay
earlier in the week, so they all have that as well.
Cool. Yeah, we definitely want that feedback. I don't know, I think it'd be fun to paint a pumpkin, watch a movie.
And then the last, so I believe both Kedzie and Brooke had on this like IDSO shirt. What's the problem? The apparel and everything.
We definitely talked about this in our last, because we just had a meeting yesterday with our board members. I have the Cricut Maker and Cricut Press. So when it comes to apparel, we want to create, I believe on our website, I would love to set it up where people could go and pre-order, but I can take any type of logo and just purchase vinyl and put it on really any type of shirt, sweatshirt, beanies. We talk about making maybe stickers for laptops. I don't know, just to get some fun apparel items out there, since we're kind of missing that in-person connecting. But yes, we're definitely going to have some of that apparel to share and promote. So once that gets up and running, I will have, our idea was if we had any, I'm trying to get more freshmen to join, and hopefully this helps. If we have any announcements, Mickey was going to forward them to you, Kim. So like if we do an apparel, it would be like maybe a poster or something that would help reach out even further. So
I have an idea for the pumpkins.
Okay.
So if everybody painted a caricature of somebody else, and then they made the pumpkin their thumbnail photograph for for their portraits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very serious idea.
I like that.
Including faculty.
Yeah, no, if you guys want to take part, and all we are is I think we're gonna put, once we get the survey, the number of people that are coming, we're gonna put them either in like the resource library, because I don't think that gets locked, because it might be hard with like the rooms getting locked, and then people just pick them up with like, my idea would be having like a little goodie bag almost with like a little miniature version of the poster and kind of like the date to like go on Zoom, the time, and like a little bag of popcorn, so everyone can just tune in virtually. And I think like share the screen kind of like this, something fun, not homework related.
I think they would really like that.
The library is such a mess right now, though. I don't think I'd put anything in the library.
Okay. I don't know if you have any recommendations.
I know. Maybe after Tuesday when I'm there, and Constantina and I get a chance to kind of work a little bit in there, we'll try to clear off a table. That probably is about as good as it'll get. So
I'm at the school a lot, and so the main door to the faculty office suite is usually open. So there's that table that's like right in front of them. That might work too.
Yeah, because we were trying to think what would be the easiest, because I know it was hard to even pick a time for the IDSO meeting, because freshmen, there's so many classes and they get out kind of late. So that's why we were thinking the 18th. I believe that is I don't even know what date that is. Let me look at my calendar.
Sunday, I want to say.
Yes. So it'd kind of be around like dinner time. So hopefully no one's doing homework. They can take a break, watch a movie, have some popcorn, relax a little bit. So that was kind of the idea around that. And
So
around
don't
everyone.
put like a heavy due date on the the 19th.
Well, we were trying to like look at everyone's like project schedules too, to kind of have a set meeting date. So people could plan and request off work and stuff. But that's kind of the goal. But yeah.
Cool. Thanks for organizing all that information.
Yeah, I figured it would be great to share because it's hard to sometimes just repeating, getting the word out there more and more. Maybe more people will hear it, but hopefully we might get another freshman rep. Need more involvement.
Well, I can, because this is being recorded, so once I get the file for it, I can post it to a YouTube, and maybe it's just an interior design playlist that we can all access, and then anything that gets recorded can just get posted there.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. That wraps us
Thanks
up.
for setting this up, Kim. It's felt like the first time I felt like we've actually all been able to connect. So
I know.
Yeah, so sad.
As the first year students also, they don't know each other yet either. And they are all very isolated in their dorms right now. And I'm getting drawings of their dorms, so it makes it even worse for me. They'll like it. Yep.
Well, it was good to do this. I think we should do it more often because maybe it'll be a better connection. So thank you, Kim, for starting this.
Yeah,
there will be another one. There's another event in the Lemonade series in about 2 or 3 weeks. So there'll be a new Eventbrite coming out for that.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right.
Which one's that? Is that the Ramia? Is that the one she's doing in a few weeks?
Yeah, it's just a guest presentation on the history of germs and design and how design has changed over time based on different diseases that try to kill us all. And then we need to adapt our environments, which we're experiencing right now. And then she poses, what can we learn from the history as we look into the future. And she's a historian that studies this for her PhD.
Oh, very cool.
Yep.
Interesting.
All right.
Okay, I got to sign off.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good seeing you all.